for everybody in there. Let me put the channel, the Twitch channel that you can send to all your social media right now. I sent you the wrong thing. It was the Facebook thing. It's not what I wanted to send you. I wanted to send everybody. In fact, if I just go to everyone here, there we go. Okay, that's the Twitch channel there. So you can, all those here who are on Zoom can just send that out to your Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. To have your guests come in and watch your presentation.
And you dropped that in the chat.
Yes, I did.
All right.
And I dropped
the question is, can we copy it without launching it?
Yeah, you can click and drag over it, which I'm doing now, and then right click copy.
Okay. Oh, there it goes.
All right, so we are live on Twitch now, but we'll start the presentation in about 5 minutes. Waiting for everybody. Let's see who's all here.
There's Newmac. Newmac just showed up.
Newmac.
Hey, it's Bobby Newmac. With his Japanese soji screen.
All right, Essence, welcome. Good morning, everybody. So all those here who are on Twitch, chime in, share with us where you are from. We like to do this every week. Share with us where you are from. All right, people are slowly coming in. All right, I was just checking to see. We have Greg is, let's see, let's go back to the beginning, make sure everybody's here. Stephen Bay is here, Larry Vogel's here, Greg Clamp, Lois is here. Amethel, hey Amethel. Amethel's here. We've got the Newmac. We know
better than the old Mac.
Better than the old Mac. And of course, Larry, of course.
Lawrence to his friends.
All right.
Oh, my mother would shoot you if she was still alive.
That's okay. You call me Johnny, I won't answer.
You won't answer anyway.
No, John will answer it. It's just like this. What? Huh?
What?
Gosh, I'm just thinking of all the years I have known John, and even I'm not forgetting the person's name.
I used to have hair. Actually, we both did.
Well, we both did. We both had hair. I was a little kid. I was still in the photo program in school, learning photography at Palomar College. That was back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I was using your lab. Your lab was over there off of what's that street? That was
Hancock Street.
Hancock Street, yes.
Yeah.
Had a little lab there.
Boy, I don't ever remember seeing you with hair.
Yeah, you did.
You didn't have hair when I met you.
Really?
I don't think. No.
Well,
at least not very much.
Well, maybe I didn't. Greetings from Moscow, Idaho. Essence, welcome. So everybody, put into the all those on Twitch, put in the chat box where you're coming from and what the weather is like in your area. People have a tendency to kind of come in a little late, but we'll get.
I'm disappearing for a few minutes. I'm out of USB ports. That'll be back.
USB ports. You have heard of a hub?
Maybe I do need a new computer. I'll be back.
Just get a hub. Okay, let's see. Let's go here. I'm gonna type in here. Where are you from? And I can type today. Where are you from? And what is the weather like? Like hell in a lot of places right now. Welcome everybody to the Photoshop users group meeting. We got an exciting meeting today. You're currently seeing the Zoom stream of several judges from the largest international photography and digital arts exhibition. in the United States, the San Diego County Digital Photography Exhibition,
Is
international.
that true? The largest?
International. I think was Lois said. I remember last year. I thought someone said we were the largest.
We're the oldest and the largest
Wow.
printed and juried photo competition in North America.
Right.
Wow.
So we're a big
Yeah.
group. It's an honor to be involved. So now everybody who's joining online,
Testing.
if you want to submit, now the judge, there's going to be two parts to this meeting. The first half, the first hour and a half or so, we're going to be talking about the exhibition. We're going to be talking about basically the categories in the exhibition. The judges are going to talk about what they look for in good work, how they judge the print. You guys get to jump in and ask questions. I'll keep your questions going and popping up here. And then the second half of the meeting, after a 15-minute break, we're going to do a dry run of the judging. So many people, many artists have. I can hear you perfectly, John.
Oh, good. I can too.
Okay. So if anybody wants to submit anything for the judges to kind of to do a little not a critique, but so much of a review.
Let's adjust this.
I will put in my email address and just send 2 JPEG images directly to my email address. And I will put that into the chat box right now. Send images to, and I'll go ahead and put in my email address here. All right. And I'm going to copy and paste that so I can post it in there every so often. So there we go. So if anybody online would like to, to submit anything, you're welcome to do so. And I'll just send 2 images directly to my email address, which I've just posted into the chat box. How about we give it just one more minute, and then we'll go ahead and get rocking and rolling. And I'm checking to see who are we're missing. Jen. Jen should be here.
Jenny Wolf.
Jenny Wolf. She said she was going to be here.
Yeah, I saw that.
Who else are we missing? Let me check my database here real fast.
Larry, I just got an email that says they want you to sing until we start.
Okay. Let me grab a guitar.
No, please. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Jenny.
All right.
There we go.
Stairway to heaven.
Oh, I have to get a different guitar.
Oh, okay. All right.
That
Okay.
was not tuned right for the stairway song. We're gonna have to go electric.
Yeah, I think we have everybody here but Jenny Wolf. We're just waiting for Jenny.
Oh,
She just got
there she is.
here.
Oh, Jenny. Hey, Jenny.
Hi.
Great
Sorry,
to
I had
see ya.
audio issues. I had to switch computers.
What's that?
I had audio issues. I had to,
Just kidding.
and I fell for it.
All right.
That's my line, Larry.
All right, go ahead.
What?
Say what?
Oh, great. So the numbers are popping up here. People have a tendency to show up never on time at the start of the hour. Everybody jumps. Well, not you. I don't mean you guys. I mean just the artists in general coming to watch the presentation.
So what's the situation? We have more judges than participants?
Hey, Lois, you see this cup?
Yes.
It's a collector's item. It's from the fair that never was.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
I got that cup.
Yeah.
I do. I broke my other one, and it's the only one I had left.
Oh man.
Fair that
Okay.
never was.
Well, I tell you what. Why don't we just go ahead and get rocking and rolling? Welcome everybody to the Photoshop Users Group meeting, and you're on my personal Twitch channel, which is Digital Creativity with Stephen Burns, and so what you're looking at here is a small portion of the judges, including myself, that judges the largest photography and digital arts exhibition in the United States, in North America, I've been told. It's the San Diego County International Digital Arts and Photography. Okay. So what I like to do every year, usually at the beginning of every year, is to bring on the judges to talk about how they judge, what, the criteria for each of the categories. Lois and Amethel are both here. They're the coordinators for the exhibition. And so what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to turn this over to Lois and Amethel. So Lois, if you want to, Lois and Amethel, if you want to introduce all the judges here, and then talk about the fair, the categories, and all of that stuff.
Sure. My name's Lois Fong Sakai. I'm the program manager of the San Diego County Fair's International Exhibition of Photography. And with me today is my partner, Amethel Parasawal. Amethel, you'll be doing most of the presentation because I came down with a severe case of laryngitis today.
Oh,
I
wow.
hope you
Really?
shall end the presentation. Yes, I don't normally have this deep, husky, sexy radio voice.
It's a Stevie Nicks impersonation. You're doing really well, actually.
So let's go ahead and do the introductions. We'll start with Kurt Lightfoot. So just introduce yourself and what your specialty is and what you've judged in the fair before. Kurt?
Well, I thought you were going to do the introductions for us.
It's easier this way.
Kurt, you got to work.
Well, I haven't judged the fair continuously every year for like 15 years, but I've judged the fair a half dozen times during that period of time. And the categories that I've judged have included the digital photography section that allows for editing, and some of the photojournalism oriented sections that fit with my background in event photojournalism. My background includes industrial marketing, which included visual graphics and photography, of course. And in that case, people like Greg and others would have been a supplier to my organization. So I would have been the guy that they talk about in the background of, marketing doesn't know what they're talking about. If you're that guy.
All right, thanks, Kurt. We look forward to having you back in the fold this year. Stephen Burns, I think you don't really need an introduction. Everybody knows what you do.
Okay, I'm Stephen Burns. I pretty much I can do any category at the fair, but they've had me quite a bit on the digital arts and also the photo compositing section. So that's where you're taking your photography or painting skills and creating something fantastical. So myself, along with Greg Clamp and Lee Cozy, judge that category for the fair.
Okay, we'll move on to Stephen Bay. He's coming back to judge with us this year also. So Stephen, a little bit about your photography background and what you've judged in the past. You're muted.
There you go.
Hi, I'm a landscape photographer. I mostly focus on local scenes in San Diego. I also do a lot of landscape astrophotography. Last year was my first year judging, and I judged night and summer categories. I also recently worked was a participant or in the fair. So 3 years before that, I submitted. So I have that perspective as well. If you want to know anything about that.
All right, thanks, Larry. Larry, you're up next.
All right. So I guess I made the mistake many years ago of saying I'm available for any category. So I've judged a lot of different categories, and I joke about the mistake because I got to do, I think I did, they don't call it man's best friend anymore because that's not politically correct. What is it?
I'm jealous.
Our best friend or something like that. Anyhow, I've done a couple of categories that I don't know that I feel overly qualified for, but I think photography is photography, so I feel okay to judge just about any category. And I have done, I don't know how many years I've done, and I lucked out this year. I think Lois made a special deal for me because I'm not going to be able to be there for the print round judging. I'm going to be just on the first tier, so that's what happens this year.
All right. Amethel, my partner, she has judged before also. So if you want to do a quick introduction of yourself.
Hi, sure. Before becoming a coordinator, I served as a judge and a presenter for the photo show. My background is in photojournalism. My degree is in photojournalism. But in recent years, I've been more involved in landscape photography.
Right. Thanks, Amethel. And thanks for stepping in later with the rest of the presentation. Greg?
Hi, I'm Greg Clamp, and I've judged this show 14 years and a variety of other clubs and fine art exhibits as well. My background is in digital art and design, multimedia, music and animation, and as well as illustration. And my categories have typically been the digital categories, which have been pared down a little this year. And I've judged a variety of other things, including Our Best Friends and abstracts, and I love to see the variety in any of these categories.
Okay. And then our computer monitoring guru, John Watts.
What? Computer monitoring guru. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is John Watts with Watts Digital Imaging here in sunny San Diego, and I am a post-processing specialist for photographers. Oh, sorry, I was doing a dog imitation there. Yeah, and I will say man's best friend because I'm politically incorrect. But anyway, I've been judging this for, I don't know, I think 20 years now. I think I had hair when I started. In fact, Stephen, you were the coordinator at the time, so that should tell you how long. No, I can get back. Donna Cosentino was. So anyway, I'm kind of like Larry. I'm kind of a utility infielder. They'll stick me wherever they need me. If I had my druthers in a perfect world, I would judge only all things mechanical, cell phone, and large prints. But that's because I'm also a custom printer and have been since, I don't know, 1984 or thereabouts. That's it.
All right. And then we'll move on to Jenny Wolf.
Hi. Hi, I'm Jenny Wolf. That was my dog interrupting you, John.
Oh, that's okay.
My background is actually in science, and I used to enter the fair and was encouraged to sit on the other side of the table, which I did about 8 years ago, I think. So I end up judging a lot of the animal categories, mammals, best friends, things like that, because of my science background. And I also tend to shoot things. While I do shoot some wildlife and landscape, I'm also an official photographer.
With a camera or a gun?
Photograph animals.
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay, all right, okay.
Sorry. I'm also the official photographer for Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta for the last couple of years.
Excellent.
All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen so we can start the presentation. So do all of you see that?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
I'm not everybody, but.
Excellent. So slideshow from current slide. There we go. So as I said in the introductions, I'm Lois Fong Sakai. I'm the senior program coordinator, and then my associate, Amethel Parasol. We run the entirety of the International Exhibition of Photography. And because I do have a severe case of laryngitis, thankfully, Amethel has agreed to step in and do pretty much the entirety of the rest of the presentation. I'll be doing the slideshow and pushing the buttons, but she'll be doing to try to help me save my voice a little bit. So Amethyl, take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, Lois. I hope you feel better soon. Usually we switch off back and forth in this presentation. So if I miss some things, Lois, just jump in or wave me down. First of all, thanks to Steve for inviting us to present to the user group. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be doing the fair again because we had that 3-year hiatus, and last summer was our first summer back. So we are a lot more together and prepared this time, and we're looking forward to a more normal experience this summer. As we mentioned before, the International Exhibition of Photography is indeed the oldest and largest jury print exhibit in the US. Our origins date back to the 1940s. It was actually conducted by the Navy, and so the root of our international participation dates back to the Navy when they participated and were doing a lot of traveling, of course. So even today, we get a lot of entries from all over the world, Asia, Europe, Central America, South America, from everywhere. And we've even had ribbon winners travel all the way from Japan for our artist reception. So we're very proud of the fact that we are indeed an international exhibition. We have roughly 4,500 entries in 2022 because we were recovering from COVID. We had about 3,500 entries, and we hung last year only about 1,200, but typically we can hang anywhere between 1,300 to 1,400 images in the gallery, which is about 10,000 square feet of space. So for the categories, I won't jump into each class in the various categories, but just to cover the overall divisions, and also to note a brand new class that we have this year. But overall, our divisions are here in color. We have the spring, summer, and fall, and winter categories, which are seasonal. This year, we have an entirely new class of timeless, which is any image that is not reflected in the season. We want to point out that when you're entering a seasonal image, you should still submit it in the appropriate class, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. But we're pretty excited about this category, which opens up a lot more variety with what kinds of images you can submit.
If I could jump in here, if you go to Iceland in the summer and you take a picture of icebergs or the snow, I would suggest that you still enter the picture in winter, because that's what we kind of identify winter as looking at, even though you may have taken the picture of the snow in the summertime, but it's considered our summer.
Also to clarify, this new timeless landscape non-seasonal includes images, scenes like deserts or dunes, coniferous forests, monuments and landscapes, foggy scenes, images that aren't specific to a season. Okay, so after timeless, again, we insist that you still respect the various classes, such as waterscapes and seascapes and architecture. We anticipate that there's going to be in this first year perhaps some confusion about what timeless is, but really, if your image fits into one of these other classes in the color divisions, stick with those. For portraiture people, we have people, informal, informal. The difference between that, of course, is formal people portraits are staged. They're studio shots. There is control by the photographer of the person or the people involved. Informal, they're more candid images. The remaining classes really need no clarification, but if you have questions, feel free to ask. Go on to the next slide.
So new on this page is class 29. This is the San Diego County Fair theme of Get Out There. So the fair has decided to use themes from the different national parks for the fair theme this year. But they've also told us that the theme of Get Out There could be individuals or groups getting out into public arenas again or gathering again. So it's whatever your interpretation may be of getting back out there.
So for the remainder of the divisions, we have film and alternative process. There's something new with this where we've included photo restoration in this. It's not been excluded ever, but we had some interest last year in including a category photo restoration that is the before and after of an older image. So if you were to enter that, we would request that you include the original image and the restored image. That's not a new category, but an encouragement to submit in that class photo restoration projects. For digital art, this is another major change. We have eliminated the illustrative category, and we have only the digital art. If you're still interested in illustrative, we encourage you to submit to the Fine Arts exhibit, which is usually downstairs in the East Grandstand, that exhibit. But this year and moving forward, we only have the digital art category, which emphasizes the use of photographs in your composition.
To make sure that the people are actually using photographs, we are making a change this year, and during Tier 1, the artist must submit during Tier 1 not only the image that they want to have judged, but they must include as a collage the thumbnails of all of the pictures that they used to make that composite.
So new this year, we already talked about this new class, timeless landscape, non-seasonal. We talked about the digital art and illustration class being omitted. We talked about the fair theme, which is Get Out There, which has various interpretations that you're free to make. The digital photographic art requiring thumbnails, just to clarify that, we mean that they would be on the margins of your image. So the image that you're submitting should still be dominant in the frame, and then your thumbnails would be around the margins. So whether you've used 3 source images or 10, those need to be included as thumbnails in your Tier 1 submission. Another new thing is we're not allowing float mounts. Those have posed too many issues over the years with staying together and staying on the exhibit with the Velcro adhesives that we use. We've also reduced the weight of images, and this primarily affects the large prints because we've had issues where the prints were just too heavy to hold in the exhibit. So we reduced the weight to 7 pounds. Another major thing, which I'm sure is not a new issue to anyone here, but we, with the advent, well, the recent advent, II has been around for a while, but with the new technologies, we have explicitly stated that we are not allowing any kind of artificial intelligence generated work. And again, we reserve the right to ask for source files when you're submitting composites in the digital category. In terms of how to enter, we encourage you to read the instructions carefully. A lot of times, submissions don't make it to tier 1 or tier 2 simply because basic instructions weren't followed. So please read the instructions carefully. Look at the categories. Be sure that you're entering the right category. And decide what you want to enter in what categories ahead of time, so that it's not a last minute situation where you're trying to figure out what category to enter. To enter, it's quite easy. You just go to the website here on the page sdfair.com entry by the deadline, which is April 17th at midnight. And this year we made the deadline on Monday, just to give people a little bit of extra time to get their submissions ready. Names and watermarks are not allowed on the images at all. That's in tier 1 and digital and tier 2 print. And for image submissions, 1800 pixels long is the suggestion. I'm sure judges will mention this, but I know when I was judging, I ran into many situations where the images were so low res that they couldn't even be judged, and therefore they didn't even make it to past tier 1. So please submit your images not less than 1800 pixels on the long side. When you upload your submission, you'll get an email confirmation that it was submitted. If you don't get one of those, follow up, make sure that you get that email confirmation to confirm your submission.
So you're one of the first to see this, but this is how the computers are calibrated for tier 1 judging. So you may want to do a screen grab or take a picture of this so that when you process your pictures, you'll know exactly what the judges are looking for.
This is why Lois referred to Larry as our monitor guru earlier, because what happens is before, I'm sorry, John Watts is our monitor guru, because right before tier 1 judging, John Watts comes and he helps us calibrate all of our monitors. So
they keep promising me lunch at Brigantines, but for some reason,
Brigantines is good.
You know, we feed all of our
I'm totally joking.
No, no, we really appreciate John, because like I said, he comes a day or two before tier 1 judging to calibrate all 12 to 13 monitors, and these are the settings that he uses. So if you want, it's not going to be exact, but if you want the best possible case of viewing the images as the judges would use these calibration settings.
Can I jump in for 10 seconds here? The monitors that we're using are not like super great monitors. Okay, these are purchased through the state of California, so I'll leave it at that. I mean, I would imagine there's a retail price on these of maybe $200 if that. All I'm saying is, if you don't have a fancy monitor but you choose to calibrate, you're still going to get better results. That was more than 10 seconds. Sorry.
Okay, so after you've submitted, if you after tier 1 judging, if you have been passed to tier 2, you'll get another email with instructions on how and when to deliver your prints. So you will prepare those images, and we'll talk about the mounting instructions later. But you prepare those images, you submit them by a specific date. See, and let me just say that is this year. Print delivery is Monday, May 15th, and Tuesday, May 16th. So we can receive them in the mail by that time, or you deliver them to the Del Mar Fairgrounds. And if you want your images to be mailed back to you after the fair, then just arrange to send us prepaid shipping. Otherwise, you pick up the prints on Thursday, July 6th this year. Okay, so selecting images for competition. Again, I'm sure the judges will talk about this, but we all have images that we love for personal reasons. They might be photos of people we like, or the experience of shooting was memorable, whatever reason we have an affinity towards certain images. But when submitting images for competition, we really have to look at a different set of criteria. So with these elements of a strong image, impact is first on the list because it's probably the most important. It's the most immediate first impression that a viewer has when seeing an image. Does it capture their attention? Does it make them feel a strong emotion? Does it make them sad or surprised? Does it make them laugh? Does it tell a story? Is there a strong mood? So if your image makes the viewer feel something, you're halfway there. An image can have impact if it's unique, if either unique in subject matter or unique in point of view. Whatever it is, it can be hard to define impact, but when you see it, you feel it. Focal point, of course, is what is the main subject or point of interest? Where do your eyes go when looking at an image? Composition, the creative use of framing so that you're directing your viewer to your focal point. Lighting should support or emphasize your previous elements, which are your focal point, your composition. Lighting should elevate these elements. It should add to the narrative. It should add to the mood of the story. Good lighting, it adds depth, it adds dimension, it adds drama. It's really, you could have a good focal point in an image and good composition, but if your lighting is on point, you're not maximizing the quality of that image. Exposure and tone, of course, there are subjective or creative choices with exposure and toning. For example, if you're trying to create low key or high key scenes where your toning is dominantly dark or bright, but there are basic technical issues that need to be spot on with your submissions. So some of the common things that we see in judging are blown out highlights or clipped darks and clipped blacks. Sharpness and focus, unless you're being intentional about using soft focus, make sure that your images are sharp. That's pretty straightforward. Color and tone. How are you using color and tone to elevate your scene or your narrative? If you have people in your scenes, the important thing is, especially for the people categories, is check your skin tones. Make sure that you're toning with your images, whether it's good flesh tones or maybe it's a very dramatic color grading, whatever your intent is. Make sure that you're elevating your image towards that intent. So if you are submitting a documentary image or portraiture, remove any color cast or things that distract from your image. Common issues during judging. If you want a really good screenshot, a checklist of things that you really need to look at before you click that submit button, take a shot of this. These common issues during judging occur year after year. So we've already touched on some of these points, but they're important enough to cover again. With lack of impact, it is the single reason, aside from an image being too low resolution, but lack of impact is the main reason that images don't make it past tier 1. So, gauging the impact of an image is really best when the judge hasn't seen the image yet. For this reason, many competitions like ours have protocols for revealing submissions only at the start of judging. Lack of focal point. I think it was our good friend and departed friend, David King, who always liked to make this point that it wasn't his job as a judge to find your focal point or find your subject. So it is a very common rule, a common issue with judging that the judges don't know what they're supposed to be looking at. For example, a common mistake with landscape photography is the tendency to show as much as possible with a wide lens. Often the focal point gets lost. In these kinds of scenarios, instead of shooting wide, really consider what you're focusing on in the landscape and isolate it with your composition and lighting and the other elements that we talked about. So maybe instead of shooting a wide scene, you shoot long and focus on the dappled light coming into a specific area of the scene. It's not always for landscapes about shooting wide. It's about creating a sense of depth and a sense of intimacy with the viewer to show your landscape. Whatever you do, whatever class you're submitting to, have a clear focal point. Clipped highlights, shadows, and blacks, we've already talked about. Use your histogram. Many of us say this all the time, but your histogram is key to checking your tonal range, especially in the field. Over-processing and excessive saturation, very common. we'll talk about that more, I'm sure. But it's something that happens year after year with the over processing and just cranking that saturation level way too far. This next one takes literally seconds to fix, and that is horizon lines not being level. It is so easy. Just go into Lightroom, Photoshop, whatever you use, and use that grid overlay, whatever you need to do, unless you're, again, being intentional to use the Dutch angle. Your horizon lines should be level. Dust and dirty sensor spots. Zoom into that image, zoom into your images at 100%. Check every inch of your frame. Oftentimes, photographers make a mistake of only viewing your image just to fill the frame. When submitting for competition, you need to look at really every inch of your frame at 100% to make sure you've checked all those dust and sensor spots. It's surprising to see how many submitted images are in tier 1 that have these issues. A trick is to Command I on a Mac, Control I on Windows. This makes your image a negative, so your dark spots will become white under against a dark background, so that they're easier to see. Loose cropping, another issue. The loose cropping, when you can address your cropping to tighten your composition, to pull the eye to your focal point, you omit dead space, you omit distracting elements. This is tied to the number 2 in this list, which is lack of focal point. So you can use cropping to emphasize your focal point. Of course, if the focal point isn't there to begin with, then you need to choose another image with a different framing. But oftentimes it's a matter of just the too loose in the cropping. Distracting elements, again, check throughout your frame, including the edges. It's not just what's in the middle, it's also and what are in the edges that pull your eye, that distract your eye from the focal point. We've talked about low resolution with images in tier 1 being passed up because the images are just too low res to discern expressions on faces or the scene itself. The quality of printing and mounting, we'll talk about some more, but in tier 2, printing and mounting are absolutely key to staying in the competition, getting hung in the gallery, but also, of course, to getting any ribbons. So just keep in mind that good subject matter, good impact, it can still be ruined by bad technique or bad presentation. So you could follow all of these best practices with impact and focal point and all of that. But if you don't present it, then you're not gonna win any ribbons.
And of course, idea is to win ribbons.
Absolutely. We've had many people, especially last year when we were short on ribbons. We had quite a lot of people care a little bit less about the financial compensation and more about their missing ribbons. So yeah, it is important. Moving on to selecting and preparing images. Selecting proper substrates for your image. Look at this as as a creative choice as well as a technical choice. It shouldn't be an afterthought, right? Some of the photographers and artists I respect most think about their choice of substrates at the same time that they're thinking about their image in the field, right? So I think it's important to elevate your craft and consider paper choice is part of your creative process. So pick your paper wisely. The right paper can elevate your image to the next level. So for example, if your image has soft tones and it's very painterly, you might choose a slightly textured matte. Or if you have an image that requires a lot of shadow detail, you might choose a higher contrast luster to boost that separation and shadows. Matte papers have a harder time rendering high contrast scenes. So if you have a high contrast scenes, give that some thought. We don't we allow glossy in the gallery, of course. We don't prohibit any kinds of substrates, but because we don't know where the image will hang, glossy prints may have glare depending on the angle of the light, and there's no way to predict where a print will hang. So glossy images do have more glare than others. We suggest that before making final prints, make small test prints of your images, and preferably using the specific substrate that you'd like to print to see if it looks good, and if it doesn't look good, then reprocess images as needed. We recommend taking even these smaller prints and getting feedback from others until you get to the quality that you're after. Printing and presentation is next. So mounted prints, metal, acrylic, canvas, and other substrates as allowed, and this part is key, as long as they can be hung on our Velcro receptive panels. So the way we hang these is we have Velcro strips that attach to the back of your prints, whether it's the 16 by 20 matted print or the large prints. All prints are hung the same way with these Velcro tabs. So if there's something in the back of your print that keeps us from adhering these tabs, your image can't hang. So metal prints must have rounded corners for the safety of all of the photo crew handling the prints.
Amathel, can you define the next thing you're going to talk about, float mounts? What do you mean by that?
Float mounts are when they're hung. You have some mount on the back that makes the print stand out from. So it's not a flat back. It's something in the back that makes the image protrude. There's different kinds of float mounts, and we used to allow them. But we've had too many issues with those falling off, or the mount itself not being big enough to adhere the Velcro tabs, or the weight didn't carry, wouldn't hold up. So float mounts are no longer allowed. Print sizes can be up to 16 by 20, and again, whatever the size, they must be mounted on 16 by board. With no float mounts. So you've got the mount board or foam core or gator board, and then the prints, and then the mat. If we do accept, and they're very common now, the digital mat. So it doesn't have to have a front mat, but it does need to be 16 by by 20. The exception here, of course, is large prints. Images in large prints have to be larger than 16 by 20 and can be no larger than 40 by 40, including any matting. And then again, importantly, they should not weigh more than 7 pounds. We've had images over the years just fall during exhibition. In those cases, we called people and said, "Hey, look, your image has fallen, and you're free to bring in a new print." But of course, you know, who wants to reprint a $200 acrylic print to hang back up? So,
If you can get an acrylic mount for a few $100s, can you tell me where? Okay, sorry, never mind.
Yeah. Okay, printing and presentation, as we continue here, window mats and mount boards must be black or pure white. And when we say pure white, we're not saying ivory or white with a hint of blue. It's just pure neutral white. And the reason for that is the when we hang the show, these prints are pretty close to each other. So it's just aesthetically more consistent when the whites, when you're looking at an entire display, when the whites are all the same and not warm and cool and or gray, or, you know. So for the consistency of the show, it's black or pure neutral white. And if mats have a black outside and a white core, or white outside and the black core, you know, that's fine. But no colored mats, no colored mount boards, because you can see them, and only one. So we've had issues over the years with double mats, but it's just one mat, one single mat can be used. There's a digital tag that you receive in your acceptance email, and that needs to be mounted in the back of your entry. And then again, no names, no signatures, no watermarks.
Or it will not be accepted.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. I think for this next section on mounting, we can go through this pretty quickly. It's best if you screenshot this slide as well as the next one. But with your basic materials, it's your window mat, like we said earlier, some kind of a stiff backing board, good quality tape. We suggest that you don't use any kind of masking tape, transparent tape, photocord. No, just use good quality double-sided tape and linen hinging tape, because the gallery has fluctuations in temperature and humidity, and the prints, they buckle during those fluctuations, and it's important to follow to look at the next slide, and you'll see what we're talking about. This may not look like a conventional way to do your mat and mount, but it allows the prints to breathe in that fluctuation of humidity and temperature. So we don't want to spend too much time on this, but for sure, if you're planning to use a single mat, screenshot that slide.
I'll just wait another few seconds so people can screenshot this.
Yeah. And then screenshot the next one too, because it has detailed instructions that you want to use with this slide.
Amethel or Lois, could you reiterate that a physical window mat is not a requirement, that you can print your image on a 16 by 20 piece of paper with a white or a black background and then mount it onto your board?
Well, yeah.
I mean, maybe I already you reiterated. I just want to let everybody know that's
it's
not a requirement.
Yeah, it's not. These digital mats, as some call them, are perfectly acceptable. The main condition here is that your finished work is 16 by 20.
One suggestion I might make is if you have a photograph that's a panorama or it's thin and long, that you don't print to the 20-inch length with a bar of black or white above and below the image, kind of like the old widescreen movies. The judges have seen pictures printed like that, and I understand the makers wanting to maximize the image size. However, presentation-wise, it doesn't have the impact when you have a white or black stripe above and below your image. So the judges seem to prefer images that have borders around all four sides if you're going to have some sort of a virtual mat. So trying to keep that in mind. There have been situations where they loved photographs and wanted to award it a ribbon, but they decided not to because it had that screen on that long bar on the top and the bottom.
Lois, that's a great point. And actually also it's we're only talking, if it were me anyway, a half an inch. And let's say you've got a horizontal panoramic, make the image 19 inches instead of the full 20. That little extra half an inch to 1 inch on the left and right hand side make an incredible difference to the presentation of the image.
Okay, so for this next section, we're going to share some issues we've seen over the years with matting and presentation. To give you context to why we have such guidelines for how to mount. So here, very common problem where we'll go in, the photo crew every morning when we go in to open the exhibit, we'll see one or a couple of prints on the floor because they weren't adhered properly. The print wasn't adhered properly to the mount board. And so you can see here the example of how there wasn't enough tape used. So we'll go around in the morning and try to repair some of these images. But if your corner gets dinged, on the floor as it falls, there's not much we can do about that.
So the image here on the left, the person used masking tape, and that doesn't tend to do well in changing humidity or temperature. The image on the right, the maker took the print and adhered it to the front mount board. And when the front mount board, which is only held to the backboard using double stick tape, when it fell off, it took the print along with it. So that's why it's important to mount your image to the backboard.
Here, the mat looks like it was cut. It says here with a kitchen knife or hacksaw, or at minimum a very old blade. So again, presentation matters. When you're cutting your mats, make sure your lines are clean and sharp. Another issue with rough edges of mounting boards. So sometimes if an image, I've seen situations where an image is really stellar, like it's a a contender for a ribbon, but the presentation was bad. It was just a disconnect between the quality of the image and the quality of the matting. And there have been situations where the image warranted a ribbon, but it was not given one because of the mounting board. So mounting is really critical in this competition. Here, the image was not mounted squarely on the board, another presentation issue. And also no face mat. Go ahead, Lois.
The face mat's not really required, but what we have seen is it gives a nice finished touch to an image. The other reason for considering a face mat, especially if you have a surface that might get easily dented or scratched, is that a face mat will help protect your print, in that we stack the images in boxes as we collect them and as we transport them and as they're judged and getting set up. So having a front face mat can help protect your image also.
An example of how not to mat. The mat is not plain white. It has a texture here, and then it's double matted.
I don't think textured mats are disallowed, but they can be heavier also. So that's something to kind of keep in mind when the front mat is only held up using double stick tape.
Also, here the print is not aligned with the front mat, and that mat is cut messily. Oh yeah, this is our favorite one. Mats with I don't know if that's a footprint or what. And these are our prints, you know, that are received. This isn't damage that we've caused or happened later in the exhibit. These are prints that are freshly incoming to the exhibit. And sometimes, you know, when we receive a print, during print intake, we will point out issues that we see, but we have, depending on how busy we are, the photo crew can't always catch an issue all the time. So, but by the time it gets to judging, we're out of time. So check your prints before you submit them.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, this was the bottom of a tennis shoe that had a waffle pattern. Like somebody had stepped on it before they delivered it to us.
I'll also make a point, because I've seen this happen a lot. If you're doing black mats and white mats, and if you put the black mat face to face to the white mat while you're bringing it, that black will sometimes scuff and transfer onto the white mat too. So be careful. Use slip sheets. And I was going to add that to Lois's comment. I've always been impressed with the way that the prints are handled at the fair. When they put them in the boxes, a slip sheet goes in between each one of the photos. So they do a great job protecting them while they're there.
And they wear gloves, cotton gloves.
And right. Yep.
Right. We're extremely careful. Everyone on the photo crew when we're handling prints. And by the way, Lois and I handle every single print that comes in. And I do mean every single print. So we treat these like our own, and insist that the crew handle these prints with care. So if there's it's unlikely to for us to cause damage to them. So usually it's when the makers bring in their prints or they fall during the exhibit. So here for this image, we have a maker using photo corners, which we say not to use because they don't allow for that movement that occurs with the temperature change. This Lois, is this just a dinged corner? I don't recall.
It was delivered with dinged corners.
Okay. And then this Lois, I don't recall what this one is.
It has a couple of problems. One is that there's only one strip of double stick tape along the edges. So we highly recommend at least 2 strips or 3 strips if at all possible. The other issue is when you have bubbles in your double stick tape, it allows stretching of the tape and your adhesion is not as good. So try to do your best to get the bubbles out of there when you lay the tape down and have the 2 to 3 layers of tape to hold that front mat on. So let me talk on this one.
Yeah.
I think what happened with this one is that the person had an image that they really loved, that they wanted printed in acrylic. So they printed it the size that they wanted to and try to force it into the 16 by 20 format size that we require. So the maker gaffers taped it onto a front mat and then tried to double stick tape a float mount on the back of it. So I don't know how much weight you think that double stick tape can hold, but 1 layer or even 2 layers of double stick tape that are stuck to the back of an acrylic mount are going to have difficulty holding up the weight of an acrylic print. So this image was not able to stay in the show just because of there was no way that it could stay together to have the Velcro put on the back of it.
Next, we're gonna look at some behind the scenes with judging. We do, as we've talked before, we have a 2-tier judging process. And this is during tier 1 judging, where we've got three teams of 3 judges, and the monitors we've talked about before, where they're color calibrated. So the judging teams work together to go through the tier 1 entries and decide whether or not to advance an image. And this process takes about half a day. Okay, so with the tier 1 and tier 2 judging process, once we get, like I said, about 4,000 to 5,000 entries that are reviewed in tier 1. In tier 2, that's narrowed down to anywhere between 1,300 to 1,400. So by tier 2, the impact is proven, right? Like that your impact has already been in tier 1. Now it's about printing and presentation. And for judging criteria, we've addressed these elements, and I know the judges will address it in the next section. So we're not gonna talk about them too much, but our official judging criteria are visual impact, composition, technical quality, creativity, and presentation. Again, impact is key, especially in Tier 1, and that judging process in Tier 1 can literally take seconds. These are some shots over the years of tier 1. Actually, this right now it's Tier 2 judging print, but you saw some images of Tier 1 judging on digital, and then this is Tier 2 judging in print, where we've had over the years assistance with the Navy as our print handlers. So you can see even our print handlers wear those white gloves, and they'll present each image individually to the judges during Tier 2 judging. Last year, we were able to use high school photography students in an emergency basis. But this year, we're hoping to do that more intentionally because that worked out rather well. This is getting ready. Following images are organizing the images and getting ready for hanging.
So this is what the gallery looks like when we take it over. So everything we need to build the photo show and the walls are in these yellow boxes.
I thought that's where the bad photographers go.
And this is intake.
Yeah, print intake. So if you've not experienced print intake before, there is order in the chaos. You bring your print, and at that first station to the right, you check in with your name, and then you go through the next station and actually deliver your prints. We measure it to make sure it's the right size. We try to find any issues like big footprints on the mat or weight. You know, we look for issues that really stand out, but it's really up to you to make sure that when you bring your print in that it meets our qualifications. And then you turn in your print. This is during judging the best in show, which is a lot of fun. The way this works is the judges get cards. Usually they're playing cards, and they use these cards to vote on images that they'd like to consider for best in show. It can take 3 rounds, it can take 13 rounds, but the judges lay a card on each image that they would like to keep in the running until we whittle it down to the best in show.
We did have one year where one vote separated the best in show and the runner-up. And somehow the photo that got runner-up was recognized by the public and received the People's Choice Award that year.
There we all are.
Yeah, these are our judges and print handlers from last year. This is actually one of my favorite moments and images from all of the judging events last year, because it really, for me, sums up the spirit of the show. You know, we have all of our judges. Everybody is really on a high at this point, and then to be able to bring in these these students who are students of photography or visual arts to learn from the judges and participate in the process. These students we really see as hopefully the future of the show. So this is a great shot from Lois.
Emmethil and Lois, you guys do just a phenomenal job putting together a great event.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And this next shot, just sort of the final result of it all is just mind blowing how great a job you guys do. And I think the energy from the high school kids last year helping out the judging, that's pretty wildly cool.
Well, unlike the Navy guys who never cared about looking at each other, the high school guys and girls were goo-goo-eyed all day. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was really magical, and I hope that we can make that happen more intentionally. That was born out of just the sheer stress and disorganization of our first show after COVID. You know, that situation. And we were really, if I may, at our wits' end with trying to get all the resources together last year, and especially a crew to put everything together. So the judges, the print handlers were a last minute deal that we were able to pull together with Monica Royale. These are her high school students. And Lois called her in a panic and said, we need help. Can you help us? And it was the night before that we were trying to pull together the print handlers. And it was just really a magical thing, but a great lesson, right? Because we realized that with our goals as educators, that it's much better to engage these high school students rather than the Navy, when it really elevates the spirit of learning at the show. So hoping we can do that again. But thanks for your kind words, Kurt. And really, we couldn't do it without judges like you all on this panel. It's really a community effort with the sponsors, with the judges, of course, with the makers and all of our volunteers and the photo crew and the fair staff. It's really a community effort that it's exciting to be a part of. It's a lot of work behind the scenes, but when it all comes together, you're right. Like in this image where the exhibit is finally all together, it's really a rush.
It looks like Jenny was clutching my heart.
That's okay. Larry is doing his best ZZ Top imitation back there with the sunglasses.
Actually, I judge with the glasses on, so make sure your prints are nice and bright.
With a little bit of Photoshop, we can make him look exactly like ZZ Top.
Sorry.
So here we've got the on the left is actually our photo crew, and this is where we're putting those Velcro tabs that we talked about on the prints. And our photo crew is amazing. They work so hard and they're so committed. A lot of our crew come back year after year. So it's really a labor of love for everybody involved. And then at the right is the show ready to go. So next we're gonna talk about the photo show dates for the summer. The entry deadline is April 17th. Again, we gave everybody an extra weekend to get everything ready with the deadline by 11:59 p.m. Please don't wait until then. Because if you have a problem at 11:59 p.m. on April 17th, we will not be around to help you. We are available, leading up to that, and especially the Friday before the 17th.
I think it's actually the Monday on the 17th until 6.
Oh, until,
Yeah, and the last day.
okay. Yeah, so don't wait until the last minute, because if you have issues with uploading or anything like that, then you can't call us to help you. You'll get Tier 1 notification emails on April 26th. Ship entries can arrive anywhere between the 27th to May 16th. Print delivery, May 15th and 16th, noon to 7 p.m. Artist receptions, always a good time. It is the event of the year, as most of us know, and that's on June 6th this year. And then entry pickup is July 5th. Wait, is it, Lois? Did you change that? Is it now the 6th?
Pickup is on the 6th.
Yeah, okay. So new this year, and this was new after we created this presentation, usually our print pickup is the day after, but they've asked us to make it 2 days after the end of the fair because it's too much traffic. And they've considered it too dangerous to have the public on the fairgrounds while the show is being broken down. So it is now July 6th. So please disregard this slide. The entry pickup is July 6th, not the 5th. Okay, artist reception is on June, it should say June 6th instead of June 7th, I believe.
I think this was last year's picture, so that's probably last year's date.
Okay. But that's a highlight of the year. Of course, you know, our makers, our judges, our sponsors. It's a great time. And then finally, we want to point out that the photo show is not just an exhibit competition, it is also an educational program. So we really put a lot of effort into lining up these educational opportunities, and we hope that you take advantage of them. Here are some of them. The Judges Roundtable is June 10th. Judges Critique is on the 17th. During the roundtable, the judges talk about the judging process and the criteria. There's also a wall of judging work. So we recommend that if you come, and we highly encourage you to, if you come for the roundtable and the critique, find the judge on the wall. Well, when you go to the exhibit, there we list the judges' names with the classes that they judge, so you can identify the judges that worked on your category. Go find them on the wall, or find them during the roundtable or critique, and ask questions kindly.
You can also identify the judges that didn't pick your work.
Yes. So all of these learning opportunities are meant to help you elevate your work. I mean, I've been involved in a lot of national and international competitions, and I don't know of any other competition that gives as much access to judges as our show. It's really quite generous, and you know, the judges in this panel and the rest who aren't here with us are just some of the most generous people that I know in our industry to give of their time and talent to make the show a success, both as an exhibit and as an educational program. So please make use of these opportunities throughout the summer. And I think most of the judges in this panel are giving presentations, but during the run of the show on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, we have workshops all day. So that's at the bottom of this list. So June 9th through July 1st, those Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, we've got presenters. So I think like in this panel, we've got Stephen Bay doing a workshop on moon photography and printing, and Stephen Burns doing, I'm not sure yet, but definitely something from Stephen.
Actually, neither is he.
Yeah, I know that about Stephen. I'll hear from Stephen probably.
That's one of the things we love about him, though.
Love or tolerate. And then John, I know you're giving a presentation. Larry, I think you guys are very generous to share your time.
Emma, can I back up a little bit and give a plug for the judges' critique?
Yes, please.
Because I've always been surprised there's not like 100 people waiting in line to show up and do the judges' critique night. I think it's one of the best advantages you have as a participant. You can either bring prints in with you to sit down with individual judges. You can bring files in and sit down and put them on their laptops. Especially maybe images that you didn't get accepted into the fair. It's a great time to sit down and go, what could I have done to make this a better image? And I think it's by far, I think one of the best programs they've introduced. And it's only been maybe a handful of years ago that they started doing this. And I have just been floored that there's not 100 people waiting there to do this.
I remember last year we had a fairly decent attendance, didn't we?
Yeah, and in fact, it was divided, correct me if I'm wrong, it was divided into two aspects. One was where you could sit down with judges at the table, and we all had our own computers. You bring a flash drive or thumb drive or whatever, plug it in, and we can yak. The other was, maybe you guys can talk about it because I haven't actually done it, where you walk through the gallery with some judges too, right?
Right. So there are three aspects of the judges' critique. There's the group critique, which it takes some effort, right, and courage to get an individual critique. It makes you very it can be very vulnerable for you to do a one-on-one critique. So if you're not quite ready for that, the group critiques, you submit your images, and you may or may not identify yourself as a maker, but or you could be completely anonymous. But then a group of judges will critique the images in a group setting. You can also some judges are at a table, and you can approach them. Last year we had quite a good showing, to the point where I actually had to create a queue for the judges and give time limits, because for there were situations where there were 4 or 5 people waiting for the same judge. So I think that trend is going to continue as we promote this critique, and people really see how valuable it is. I don't know if you guys have if makers have tried to get individual critiques, but these individual critiques can cost $200 and upwards, just for an hour of a professional judge's time. I know
during the judge's critique, when I write the critiques that I conduct, I try to get everybody involved so that everybody comes, sits down at the table to share their work. Whoever shares their work, everybody gets to kind of talk about it and chat about it and give some good feedback to the artists.
Yes.
Good or bad.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then other judges will go out to the gallery with makers and do a tour and talk about images that way. Mm-hmm. But I agree with is it Larry? You said that the critique is really one of the most valuable experiences of the photo show, and I absolutely agree with that. The workshops are also extremely valuable. So if you're trying to learn a certain genre of photography, or if you're just trying to learn basic Photoshop skills, at the beginning of the show, we'll release a big calendar for the month to show the lineup of presenters, and we highly encourage you to look at that and look at the areas in which you're trying to learn, and just plan to be at the fair for that entire day.
Yeah.
And they're all free.
Yeah.
And yes, well, with admission.
Right. But you don't have to pay for the workshop. You don't have to pay for the critique, any of that.
Exactly.
Any one of these individual workshops can cost you several $100s.
All we want is a cookie and a glass of water.
You're an easy man to please, Mr.
I was going to say, John, that is cheap.
What happened to bringing?
I'm easy, man. Especially if it's a good cookie.
Now, I do want to add one story about the value of the judge's critique. When I first started working for the fair about a dozen years ago, we had an entrant that had entered 10 pictures that very first year, and it was her first time entering. And none of those pictures made it into the photo show. What she did is the night of the judge's critique, she brought copies of her pictures to the judges to get their feedback. And they gave her suggestions as to how to develop her pictures so that they would be better and stronger. The next year, she re-entered the same 10 pictures. Every single one made it into the photo competition.
Wow.
And some of them won ribbons.
Was that Lorelei?
Laura Lee.
Laura Lee? Sorry.
She's now a judge too, I believe.
Yes, she is.
And she just got into printing. She's got her own home printer, and we set her up with profiles and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's a great example of the whole critique process and how that is really pays dividends to a photographer.
There it is.
So please, if you want to know where to stay updated on all of the dates, workshops, events, follow us on Facebook. That's really where you're going to, even before the fair's website. The fair's website will have all the forums, but if you want updates on where classes are being held, workshops, things like that, you'll find that by following us on Facebook or Instagram.
So, winners. Oh, you want to do the winners? Okay, great.
Well, first, are there any questions from anybody?
I'm looking into the chat box. There are no questions. Everybody's enjoying it.
Or we put them to sleep.
Well, the numbers have jumped up, so they're all there enjoying it.
All right. So if everyone's ready to look at the winners from the previous year, then we'll go ahead and start that.
Zero items. Her folder showed 0 items.
Beautiful.
Well, that's folks.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Lois. Thank you, Amithel. Wonderful. So, all right, this is the time where we are going to do a 15-minute break. When we come back, we're going to actually do the judging. What I have is a bunch of folders of images that artists that I've requested. I've been putting it out on Facebook. I've been putting it out on to the user group that to submit your work. So what I'm going to do is, if anybody here has not submitted 2 of your images, JPEG images, that you would like the judges review, you can do it now. And this is where you're going to send it to. Actually, let me go find the actual link. Where did I put it here? It should be right there. There we go. That's it. All right. Send images, steve@chromolution.com. Do that now during your 15-minute break. And if I get those in, then we'll put it in the folder for the judges to review. All right. So I am going to put up the 15-minute timer there, and we will start it, and we'll be back. When it's done, we'll get started and rocking and roll. But for the time being, you are welcome to. There we go. That should, I think, can everybody see the timer up there? You should be able to see the timer. And we'll come back. You're not seeing the timer, huh?
Not on Zoom.
All right, so no timers up there. All right. So then maybe what I need to do is this. I'll do it another way. I will just come right over here. Give me a hot second. And I'm going to stop sharing that screen. I'm going to share another screen. Present and share screen, window, that one, share. Cool. All right, now you can see it, right? All right, so everybody can see the 15-minute timer going down?
I see it on Twitch.
Excellent. You see it on Twitch. Oh, that's right. You guys can't see it. You got to be on Twitch. All right. All right. So the Twitch people see it. They get it. You guys will not see it because no, actually, I can't. I can share my screen with you, can't I? Which I'm going to have to do anyway. So let me share this here and share. Boom. Now you can see it, right?
Yes.
All right. Cool. There it is. All right. Snack break, bathroom break, stretch your legs. Hi. We'll be back.
Break, stretch your legs. We'll be back.
That was weird. Great. So it looks like I've received one so far. And from Lawrence Pallant.
Lawrence Pallant.
Is it Pallant?
That's the way I say it.
Okay.
Some people call me Vogel. I don't know.
All right, let me get his images transferred on over. Save images as. All right, let's go and put that into the presentations folder. There we go, SDPUG, and let's make a special folder for Lawrence. Go. And he sent 2 of them, so I'm going to call it number 1 and number 2.
Lois and Amethel are still going to be here. I have a question for them before we, like a little clarification thing on one of the categories before we start.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
I'm here.
Excellent.
I do have to leave by about 12:45.
All right. It won't take that long.
All right. So let me just get this in the right, and then we'll get started. It would have been easier if they would have just submitted to me as an attachment rather than an embedded file, then I can just transfer them all at one time. But they
copy and paste.
Yeah, I got to copy and paste. They get hard on me.
I know the feeling.
All right, let's see. Okay. Presentations in SDPUG. There we go. And Lauren.
If it was easy, anybody could do it.
Yeah.
So there, yeah. I mean, you know.
Just
you demand.
Just attach the file rather than. Okay.
That's not even challenging the Stephen Burns digital skills. Come on.
No, it's just.
Do we need some background superhero music?
It's just annoying. It's just annoying. That's all. It's like, gosh. All right,
you, Steve. You know that.
Somebody's gotta love me.
Well, I have to. He's family.
Exactly.
I see the resemblance.
That's right.
We're twin sons from a different mother.
I don't know. Could that get him in trouble?
Larry, it's how much you can alcohol you can drink in 15 minutes. It's quite amazing. That's.
Well, who said I started 15 minutes ago?
All right, I'm going.
That's the great thing about vodka. It looks like water.
Yeah. It's great for feeding babies. Oh, great. All right, so then I guess we'll go ahead and get started. And while you guys are talking, I'll send out some promos to Facebook that we're now doing the actual review, the image review. And Larry, you had a question, I believe. Everybody is seeing my Adobe Bridge, correct?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Yep. Excellent. So I've got all the folders here. All right, yeah, you had a question for Lois.
And Amethel. So I guess the question I had was, so again, sort of clarification on the photo compositing category, since we're talking about everything being photo based or photographic, I guess is the way we've termed it. But as a lot of us know, I mean, creating photo composites, that you will also use gradients or graphics, or I think like Greg, who might create, computer generated image to put into his composite, or there's some photo clubs that even allow stock photo as part of your composite, but not like the main part of it. And then the question also, like with digitally created techniques, like somebody might create a shadow digitally in Photoshop, or there might not be a file for that shadow, or using a plugin like the flood filter to create water. So those kinds of things occur to me. I'm thinking that's got to also occur to some of the people in the audience about what are the limitations on these photo composites.
Uh, so overall, one of the rules of our show is all images and source images included need to be originals to the maker. So that excludes stock art, public domain images, anything that is not the work of the maker is not allowed in the show. So that's
the key phrase right there. It's got to be from the original maker.
Right.
Original maker. That's just part of the rules.
That's very cool.
Overall, with the AI question, this is probably one of the more common questions we're getting right now. We're making distinctions between AI generated work versus AI assisted tools, such as healing, which is acceptable, right? So as long as all the images and the final work are created by the maker, and you're not generating backgrounds or generating scenes, even if you generate a scene in AI and composite it with your image, that it still doesn't count because it's AI generated.
Nor should it.
Says John Watts.
But if where Larry's question went, and this is a really good point, when I'm doing photo compositing, I'm generating my own backgrounds with Photoshop using a variety of different tools and compositing them with my photos. So, but if something, I think that what I read into the description of this is a photo show, and what we want the material to be is photo composites. So it's primarily photos, but could use some of my own original digital elements, but not AI.
If they're created by you, if you're creating a texture using Photoshop as a tool, and you're building that texture, that background texture from scratch, yes, that would be allowed. It's work that is created by the maker.
Yeah, I think that needs to be written clearly into the category description, both for the judges and the submitters.
If I may, on page 2 of the photography rules, under eligibility, the exhibition of photography is an international juried exhibition of color and black and white photographs, open to all interested photographers ages 18 and older. All work must be an original creation of the entrant, including all individual elements of a composite work. Images created by artificial intelligence, known as AI, partially or completely, are expressly prohibited in all categories. Group work is not allowed.
That's clear.
Kind of. I mean, so can I use the flood filter to generate water in one of my photographs?
If it's done right, how is anybody going to know?
This becomes the problem. That's what Gene had said years ago. It's hard to create rules where we can't enforce them. This goes back to the old days of using sky replacements, and that was not allowed originally in the beginning. But after a while, it's like we can't figure out who did and who didn't, and so it became okay in the process. So I just questioned the. I think it's going to be a big. I'm glad I don't have to do the job that Greg and Steven do on the compositing category and make those judgment calls on what is actually in this image and what is allowed or not allowed. I think it's going to be difficult. But
if everything integrates and it feels like a really well composed piece of art, first of all, and that everything feels right, and we can't tell the difference, then usually that kind of work will go through. If it's obvious that the sky was wrong and that there are artifacts in it that make it look like it was generated in Photoshop and it doesn't feel right, then it's going to downgrade the quality of it, and maybe it will make it into the show questionably, but wouldn't get an honorable mention from the board.
keep in mind that this year we're requiring the thumbnail images of source files. So that's going to help to give the judge some context to understand the creation of the images.
And regarding that, is the artist, the submitting artist, supposed to put all of the thumbnails into a separate image attached?
No, to the because you can only submit one image as in tier one. Like when you upload an image, it's one image for that class. So what we're asking, and this is not our condition. This is the condition of the software that the fair uses to collect submissions. So it's one image. So for tier one, for your digital art category, you would include thumbnails of your source files around the margins of your submission.
So I can think of images that were, in fact, I gave a special award to last year where there were these planets and things put into the sky that would probably not be accepted this year around. Is that correct?
Well, that wouldn't even be. As we said in the presentation, we omitted that class.
Yeah.
Well, I could see planets and things like that being taken off of NASA and put into a photo composite in the past. But now we're saying that isn't allowed. But if I generated a moon or something in Photoshop and we, the judges, didn't know that it was created in Photoshop, then it's kind of hard to tell. So I think from a judging standpoint, we'll have to wait and see what comes in, and it is up to the judges to say this looks outside of where the category.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on the image, Craig. I mean, It really is. But it's nice to have the clarification we're getting out of the subject now, because it's something that, frankly, because I don't do much in the way of compositing, I didn't give it a lot of thought to. But I do a lot of sky replacement. But I always suggest to the person who wants that done, use your sky. Don't use one of the 17 skies that are built into Photoshop. We're going to know. Okay. Right. And so I'm just,
And just to clarify that the remaining division, now we eliminated the digital illustration. So now what remains is digital photographic art. And the description for that is digital photographic artwork based on photographs and manipulated digitally. All work must be an original creation of the entrant, including individual elements of a composite work. Images created by AI, partially or completely, are expressly prohibited. For tier one submission, the source image thumbnail should be placed along the outer edges without obscuring the main image.
So we do.
Accepted to tier two, the delivered print does not include the thumbnail. So that's what's listed in the entry materials.
So do we still have a photo compositing category?
That's what this is.
Oh, that's what you just read.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
If I use a curve and a mask to create a sun, I don't have a thumbnail of that particular part of the image. I mean, I'm just saying, I think this is going to.
It's going to be fascinating over the next few years.
It's really going to be a big snowball rolling downhill.
Well, I think what's going to happen too is we're going to end up probably creating a category maybe just for AI art.
Probably.
Yeah, but the sad part is we've already seen evidence of this, that people lying and submitting images to fairs and other things and winning, and then coming out and saying, guess what? So it's there's no way to stop that kind of stuff, but who knows?
We're gonna need a digital art category in which there are no rules.
Yeah.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah, that's where it's going. Otherwise, it's impossible to enforce.
Right.
Well, like they're saying, that's sort of the downstairs category. Maybe that's where they're doing just totally digital art. Yeah.
So fine art downstairs will continue to have a digital art category. However, I think I heard that they're not allowing artificial intelligence generated art where you're using words. I don't know how they're going to enforce that, but that's what I have heard.
Yeah, so basically they're in the same situation as we are then.
Mhm.
I mean, I mean my suggestion to you would be next year do an AI category. Let the AI give them a category to compete in, because you have to understand that a friend of mine, Brian Haberlin, a well-known comic artist, we had dinner the other day and we were talking about AI art, and he says he thinks it's wonderful. Look at all the people who are not artists who's found something that just gives them so much great pleasure to do what they thought they could never do. So,
but is it them doing it, or is it artificial intelligence doing it?
that's not the point. But that's not the point. It is them doing it. I mean, there is human interaction. But
that's where we have our best friend category, because people who aren't photographers submit their photographs there.
Yeah, exactly. So we've been accommodating non-artists and non-photographers for decades. So I think we should accommodate this too. Make an AI.
Well, I started with the cell phone category. I mean, when you get right down to it, because they were becoming so prolific, and there's a parallel between the two.
Yeah, and how many years have we fought against cell phones? We laughed at cell phone pictures, right? We didn't want that to be in our exhibition, but we did, and it benefited us. It benefited everybody.
Well, so the AI conversation is a big one, and it could take several days, and I think that doesn't enter into the photographic exhibition. We've decided that.
So basically, Greg says
everybody should come to our AI thing at Oceanside Museum.
Like I say, this is why we chose Greg as our moderator. Let's move on.
There are, as much as we love our exhibition, it's not the only one out there in the world, and I'm certain that there will be plenty of competitions that honor the AI.
There are. Good point.
But for now, we are a photo show, and that's the spirit that we're trying to retain. So. Yeah, I think, I agree with Greg. We could have this conversation about AI for a while, but we've got some folks waiting for an image review, right?
That's right. All right. So, image review. Okay, I tell you what, I'm going to go in alphabetical order here. We're going to start with a gentleman by the name of Aaron Houston. Aaron Houston is my assistant on my my photography workshops, my Death Valley workshops, and Eastern Sierra and so forth. So he submitted several images. So I'm going to start with this one.
So Stephen, can I ask you, are we treating this like a tier 1 judging or what? Are we,
Yeah,
like
I'm thinking we're gonna have to, because it's all digital. So I would say, I mean, basically tier 1 is where the meat of the judging happens. Tier 2.
You should mention, that's a great point, Stephen, because really on average, correct me if I'm wrong, Lois and Emmett, but only 1 out of 3 images from tier 1 advance to tier 2, Stephen. That's a good point.
Right. So tier 2, if you don't get into tier 2, it's because you didn't you screwed up in your presentation. You should get into tier 2 if you got accepted in tier 1, unless your presentation is just really poor.
I think that's a great, I hate to interrupt this again, but Lois, you had mentioned also that the dismissal of prints in tier 2 is going to be, the goal is to have less of them happening than we've had in the past.
It's going to be different. It'll be slightly different.
So you're right, Stephen, or also John. 70% of the images don't make it through to tier 2. I mean, they're basically looking to hang about 30%. So getting past tier 1 is the hard part.
Okay, so I'm going to let you guys just have at it.
That's scary.
Talk about it.
We're not seeing your screen
anything
again.
Oh, you're not seeing? Why are you not seeing my screen? That's very
You stopped sharing a while ago.
Oh, yes. Okay, I know why I'm not sharing my screen.
You were having some Twitch issues.
Well, it's not Twitch issues. It's Zoom issues. Give me a hot second, and I will correct it. Zoom is right here, and I need to share my screen. I need to share the same screen.
What is a hot second anyway?
I don't know. Good
What's that?
It's the same length as a cold second, but
Warmed up, right?
different nonetheless.
All right. So then you guys can see Bridge now,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So let me make sure all of my guests here can see Bridge, which that's kind of very odd. What's happening here? Twitch, for some reason, let me just double check Twitch real fast, but Twitch went blank on me. Not quite sure why. Let me go ahead and do this again. I'm going to unshare, and I'm going to represent the Twitch screen window, and that should be, screen sharing there, Zoom. Why in the world is, okay, there we go. Got it. It's taking some time to update. That's what's going on. There we go. So now Twitch can see everything. You can see everything. Everything's synced. Okay, cool. Let me see if I can maximize it like this. Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, good. That works.
And then close that thing on your screen, Steven, or is that mine?
That's a StreamYard thing.
This StreamYard right there thing.
Yeah.
I'll get it out of the way.
Just
You rock.
All right.
Also, I think this is one of the toughest things that some people have sometimes. You might have an amazing image, but you can't figure out a category where it really fits really well. So my sort of tongue-in-cheek response a lot of times has been, well, then put it in the big print category. I mean, you just have to get a 20 by 24 because there's not really any category there at all other than size. So sometimes that might be the solution to finding a place for an image. So even when this one first popped up, I'm like, okay, so where would I put this image?
Oh, I put this in all things mechanical.
Or all things that used to be.
It doesn't say when, it just says
Okay.
mechanical.
Yeah. All right.
Somebody say something.
And then after you guys talk about it, share with the artist whether it would be accepted or not accepted.
Well, I think it would be accepted in all things mechanical. But what's interesting about this picture is the narrative is all this public art that's gone on this airplane, right? So a big part of the story is what people have done to these surfaces. And it's
we almost see that if you had an outhouse that had all this kind of stuff on it, would still be kind of interesting. Good point, Kurt.
The interactive art.
Yes.
Interactive
art. Right.
It's one of those that you can look at for a while and see something different every time.
I find it a really intriguing image. It pulled me in immediately. It's impactful. I don't know exactly what it is, and I have to look at it and keep looking at it, and I want to keep looking at it. There's a lot of detail, and it seems like it's in the wrong landscape, which gives it this interesting incongruity. Mm-hmm. And then I start seeing, okay, there are these mechanical elements and people have been adding to it. And so I find it intriguing and I would accept it into the show.
Agreed.
Not sure the category or whether that really matters.
Well, kind of, if it's going to go into documentary. So I would suggest above the wing on the right side, removing that building top or whatever it is kind of distracting to the image.
Oh.
Right above the wing.
Right above the wing?
Oh,
right,
yeah,
right
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And over on the left side, that little gray sliver that comes out of the left side of the frame, over right on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
That is I agree that's the rear of the plane's wing.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's what it is. Because it's no.
Actually,
no.
No.
That's a house. That's a house. You're right. That's a house.
Yeah. In fact, I'll put on my border patrol hat.
There you go. You want me to put my cowboy hat on?
No.
You know, one of the things about this image that I really like is the way that the photographer has brought down the background and focus on the image itself, and that's very, very well done.
Yep.
Very good.
I wonder about replacing the background.
Oh no, I don't know. I kind of like it actually, but it gets back to that original question that we were all kind of stuck on a loop about.
Well, and what makes it work, that idea of at least darkening that background, whether it was originally out of focus in camera or not, or they've done that in Photoshop,
Sure.
And sort of desaturated it. You've done everything to make the background less important, which is a great idea.
Yeah.
But those little artifacts, distractions, the really straight lines on the wings and the grays off at the edges kind of pull my eye out of this important stuff.
Yeah.
So Casimir just made a comment. I don't know what it is, and I built aircrafts for 40 years.
Well, Kurt flies them. Do you know what it is?
No, it's
dead.
Commercial.
I do think that what we think is a building in that lower right wing is actually the wing. The leading edge of the wing is then separated from a rib, and we're seeing inside the wing.
Right. That was my initial thought too. But I think Larry is correct. It should be removed because it's distracting.
As well as the artifact on that left, as we're looking at it on the left-hand side, that thing.
Yes, it should. All that should be
removed.
removed.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like many times there'll be a landscape with these little specks in the sky, and you go, well, you should retouch those. Well, but they're birds. I mean, at some point, they don't look like birds anymore. Yeah. They're more distracting than they are helpful to the image. So sometimes we like to justify things logically, like, well, but that is part of the plane. It's like, but still visually.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I also think that it's a twin-engine plane, and what we're looking at is the nose, with the nose cone missing.
That's exactly right.
That's what it looks like.
And that's the windows for the cockpit.
Right.
Definitely the little things that Larry first brought up on the left and right-hand side would make the difference between an image like this, printed properly, of course, an image like this just being hung and being accepted for a ribbon of some kind. Or
right.
Yeah, good point.
And this shot is from my Death Valley class. See, this is an old destroyed airplane sitting in front of an ex brothel, no longer a brothel, but that's this is the mascot for the facilities.
Well, I with Kurt, I think we should. This would be accepted for sure past tier 1.
Okay,
and would probably place very well in tier 2.
Okay, good. We'll go to the next.
Does everybody else kind of agree?
Yeah. I'll put those corrections.
Exactly.
All right, so we'll go to the next image.
Well, this is actually a proof that having a picture of clouds by themselves just doesn't work. And just having the sign by itself doesn't necessarily work. But again, the photographer's done the same thing that I assume the other image was the same photographer, has taken and de-emphasized the background.
Yes.
And on something like this, if I was going to do any cloning, I don't know that I would, because part of the appeal of the sign itself is all the nonsense that's hanging down to the right of the close and below the parking.
Right.
You know, first I'm going to clone it out, but no, that just shows the part of the decay of the image.
Again, the little town at the bottom and the little white sign in the middle. So the question again too, though, goes back to whether this is for documentary or not. And in documentary, you would not be able to remove those images. You'd have to crop it. So
you could, just no one's going to know it.
Well, that's my other point.
Any other comments?
It does. I don't know if I'm just seeing things, but it does look like in the one of the cloud areas, there's like a repeat. I don't know if it was a retouching or not, right? Where there's no way to point to.
Larry, that's all the vodka you've had this morning, buddy.
Upper left side.
Upper left.
Right in there. Yeah, those clouds kind of look like they repeat each other. I don't know if it's partial
Good
or not.
point.
No?
Yeah, it does look like it repeats a little bit. So that probably a suggestion to the artist to clean that up.
Again, the little brightness of that cloud on the very left side edge there, there, that could be darkened down too. It's kind of distracting.
What stuff like Larry is mentioning that we've all mentioned, are the little things are the ones that will advance you from being. I mean, like I would think most people here would agree that this should advance to tier 2. We would like to see this in its printed form, but it's the little things that, like Larry's been talking about, and Kurt, everybody else has been talking about this, about all the little things that will make the difference between a print just being hung and advancing. Advancing is the wrong word. Getting a ribbon.
It's those
it goes to focus versus distractions, and
Exactly.
where's the story? The story is in the sign.
Yeah.
Contrast of the sign against the background, and there are things that are contrasting against that story, which are the buildings and the clouds at the left side.
Yeah.
And they're just minor things. They're details, but they are little distractions, and I think it would be just a little stronger without those.
Right.
But it's a good story. It's impactful.
I love the spray painted closed. That's
Yeah. Well, at least they spelled it right, you know.
right. Yeah. Well, and they covered over the massages. I guess at one point they decided not to include.
Oh, I thought that was messages.
Check your messages.
Same, the last one from the same artist.
So for me, the question here is,
Category.
yeah, well, it could go in the water category, I guess. There's fall leaves. I mean, that's the kind of thing too, is that placement in the category, it needs to be, how well does it define that category, right? So you can go, okay, they look like fall leaves. It could go into the fall category. There's water, could go into the water category. But how well does it do that? Does it really fit those categories strongly? And then it feels like it could be probably a little darker, maybe.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Is
Just bring out some more
I'm
richness.
distracted by the fact, are those coins or are those leaves? And the reason they look like they might be coins is because they're kind of washed out. And I think if the photographer were to take the lighter areas, if there is detail, whatever the proper English is, in those lighter areas, I would suggest that they do that. And I'm guessing there probably is. It's borderline to me, but that's always been one of my bugaboos is washed out highlights unless it's necessary for the overall contrast of the image.
One thing I kind of feel about this image is you've got the strong left-right motion with the water, but it's and I don't think it fits the vertical crop very well because there's not much distance to move your eye. Normally in a waterfall situation like this, you would be in a vertical, you would be going into the picture vertically.
Mm.
I agree. There's not much at the top or the bottom of the picture that really gives you the feeling of the story, the central stuff. So it may be a crop, but even then, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that it's that impactful.
I think a square crop here would work really well, eliminating the bottom and the top, so that that water in the center right is more emphasized as part of the interesting part of the image. The leaves would get bigger.
Yeah, when you zoom in like that, it's much more interesting.
And then you have this area in the upper right where that
that
little highlight and black spot is. Those need to be taken out.
I mean, and another thing with the leaves is, like a lot of photographers will physically arrange the leaves.
Yeah.
Most pleasing on the scene, which may or may not go against your personal philosophy, but that's something you will be competing against.
Yeah.
I think that idea, Stephen, I've used before, like with people who are doing, tabletop composite, or not compositing, but still life and stuff like that. There's a fine art to that object placement to where it feels natural, but not like specifically grouped in threes and put in specific places, right? At some point it feels like, oh, it's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
All right. So would that be an acceptable?
I would, if it was me, I wouldn't advance it. There's too many. To me, there's too much problems with it, with cropping and the washed out. I think it's very close.
Okay.
And we've kind of talked a lot about it, but I would prefer to see this re-entered in another year with a proper crop.
Okay.
And there's another part of all of the categories, and that is we have a targeted number usually in each category to select.
Yeah.
And the question is, would this be to the top of that sort of pile of images that would fit into that top grouping? And I think as it stands now, I don't think it would make it past the first tier based on other images probably in the same category.
And that category tends to be very popular if it's waterscapes, seascapes.
Right.
Big
Landscape
category.
categories. Yeah. So Lois, or Amathel, what are the biggest entry categories? Have the most amount of entries?
It changes from year to year. I think last year, I think it was waterscapes.
Oh.
We tend to get a lot of pictures in cell phone category. Last year, we had a record number of large print entries.
That's because of Larry telling everyone to put everything in large print.
Anything that's color photographs usually gets a lot of pictures. Anything black and white typically gets fewer.
Yeah. That's a great idea too. Yeah.
Oh, that past image might work because of black and white.
That could work too. Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
All right. So
Make it look silver.
Well, and for example, there's only the one black and white landscape category that takes in everything. Is that right? There's no seasons or.
We have black and white nature.
Uh-huh.
Let me look up the
Architecture.
Well, for nature, let me see. For black and white, we have scenic, which is landscapes and waterscapes. We have nature, which is plants, insects, and wild animals. Architecture and cityscape. And then people, formal or informal.
Yeah.
Another big category last year was birds.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I think San Diego has the market on good bird photographers. Yeah. When I looked around, it's like, man, the bird photography here in San Diego just is amazing.
Yeah. A lot up there in the San Luis Obispo area too.
One more comment about the large categories. I mean, cell phone is one of our most popular, and I love cell phone photography because I think it's the gateway drug to photography. Right. I mean, the best camera you have is the one that you're going to have with you, and pretty much everyone's carrying a cell phone. But just because it's a cell phone picture doesn't necessarily mean that you have to enter in that category. And we have had people enter pictures in the regular categories that have done very well also. And we even had some that have printed in the large print category.
Wow.
So this is Ari Vingerin.
Yeah, this one has a lot of challenges from a post-processing standpoint.
Yeah.
I like the subject matter. I have a feeling that it would get lost in that category, but perhaps with proper post-processing, it would not be an issue. It's obviously too hot, at least as I'm looking at it on through the Zoom here. The other thing is there's a halo around the tree on the right-hand side. I can't point, but yeah, there you go. There's a halo around there. This image to me would not make it past tier 1, but it might if it was properly post-processed. I'm trying to say that, but you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's just it needs work, and it needs a lot of work. And it might, again, like I think it was Larry was talking about, hey, we're judging this against other landscape and scenic, so it might, with proper post-processing, there I said it, it might advance to tier 2, but it had to see what else the competition is.
Conceptually, I'm sort of not sure where I'm supposed to be looking. Like, there's the yellow triangle of a tree in the bottom.
Yeah.
Which
no.
Well, that too. I mean, there's a bunch of places which could be focal points, but I'm not really sure that they were intended to be focal points as opposed to being accidental.
Sure.
The yellow at the bottom attracts the eye, but it's kind of like half off the page. It's enough to be distracting, but not enough to be a main focus. If it's the mountains are kind of flat, so they could support the image, but they're not really majestic enough to be like the main subject. So
there also might be a vertical crop in this that includes the yellow tree and the orange spot, and still gets enough of the mountains to really get it across. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
I was going to say Stephen's comment about I'm not sure what they want me to look at. I'm pretty sure it's that colorful group of trees dead center in the image.
Yeah.
And it feels like that was the purpose for taking this photograph, was that thing there. And it's such a small point of interest in the image, and the amount of saturation that it has is kind of a bit over the top in terms of how it balances to everything else in the image back there. The bright things on the right-hand side are distracting. The dark blue on the upper left side is also distracting to the sky.
Yeah, that little spot of blue.
That dark blue in the upper corner.
Keeps pulling my eye.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough differentiation between the foreground and background. There's not enough detail. There's not enough contrast. It's a nice snapshot, and it looks like it's had a little bit of work done, but it doesn't move from snapshot to good photograph.
Right.
It's a beautiful scene, but it lacks the attention, the focus, and the thing that gets it into the tier 1 for me.
Does anyone see a vertical crop in there at all? Or is it just me just kind
Well, I
of?
hate to quote David King, but there's an image in there somewhere, but it's not my job to find it.
Yeah, anytime we have to
I'm
spend
just kidding.
so much time talking about what are we supposed to look at,
It's
is
not
my
gonna
clue
make it.
that it doesn't belong
Work. Yeah.
Right.
in the next category
Yeah.
or
Right.
the next tier.
All right, so this is a no-go. Or we'll go to the next person, which is going to be David Good.
It's not sharp.
No, it's not sharp.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
the name. I mean-
Thank you. The rest of it's irrelevant.
This
Yeah.
is your category, Jenny.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm usually on Best Friends.
Man's best friend.
Besides it not being sharp, you have too many distracting light, the stick above its head, all the little grasses that are white colored. I mean, I get that you're trying to catch a moment that was, probably very cute, but you didn't get it, which is a shame. Yeah, it wouldn't get advanced at all.
Okay.
Also be aware of, because we see this a lot in tier 1 too, like that stripe that runs down the left side. So whether you didn't crop that edge or when you prep the file, that edge of the frame is showing on the.
Yeah, I wasn't
on the
sure if
left
that was
side.
zoom or if that's on the photo.
Yeah, I was wondering too. Does it show on the original file, Steve? That the little thin white border
All the way on the left.
on the left side.
Over here. Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? That looks like a mistake.
In cropping, or is it a zoom thing?
Well, this is it's
It's in the image.
it's
Yeah,
in the image.
it's in the image.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just some of the distractions on the bottom right where there's that little light,
Yeah.
the discoloring of the gray log, and it's just, there's too many busy things
Mm-hmm.
apart from it being out of focus.
Right. All right. That one will not go. We'll go to this next image.
Abstracts.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can figure it out in a second or two, but I mean, going into cropping and retouching. So I don't know how much of the right needs to be there. I think by maybe bringing that in a little more would also help add to the abstract. That whatever the green line is that goes across the top of that kelp area would be good to take out in the upper left. And all of that white, at least above those piano keys anyhow, would be great if you put a color in or something back there. And as long as you're doing abstract,
Yeah.
that white is kind of pretty intense.
But don't tell us you put the color in.
Well, but it's abstract. You can.
Oh, okay.
As long as you create the color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think even the white up at the top is sort of irrelevant to the focus of it, which would be more in the keys and the kelp in the center. The stuff at the edges is not really relevant to that, but I'm not sure that it has that much of a strong graphic to that. The keys and the kelp. You've got
That's the name of
square
a rock
shapes.
group. The keys and the kelp.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea, but I'm not sure that it's quite strong enough.
Okay.
I think it's a cool idea, and I would hopefully, I mean, I might assume that maybe you took a dozen other pictures. Maybe you have something else that would make use of what you photographed, maybe better than this particular frame.
Kashmir has mentioned that he would like to see a little more depth of field.
On the image itself,
I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah. So I'm assuming it means the back end being a little sharper in
Yeah.
focus. Okay.
Very
A
narrow.
couple more keys,
Yeah, a couple more keys. Okay.
I
I
think.
think that might work.
That's
All right.
a
So that one's a no-go, right?
probably
For
not.
tier 1. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next artist who will
Couple
be
more keys. That's an Arlo Guthrie song, right, John?
All right. So this is our friend.
Oh.
This is our friend Gary Buzzell.
This is utterly beautiful.
Very good. Yes.
I'm sorry, Groucho Marx.
Well, I'll say so. I go on record as saying that the rule, which I like to usually really refer to as a guideline, never put anything in the middle.
Yeah.
There are times when you can get away with it. I
Oh,
don't think
yes.
this is one of them. I think there's probably a better crop here where the cow doesn't have to be just dead center. I love what you've done with the lighting on the cow.
Mm-hmm.
I love the sky in the image also. So I think a tighter crop or some other shape. That's another thing too. Don't be afraid to create something that is not standard to the camera or something that doesn't fit 16 by 20 format, because you can put any shape onto that 16 by 20 board. Just be sure, kind of like what John was saying earlier, so many people think that getting the biggest image on that board is the best thing possible. And I just repeat, I mean, I forget who was, somebody won, I think Best of Show one year, or maybe one of the high awards, with about a 6x6 square image put into the middle of a vertical 16 by 20 black and white image. It was beautiful. So you can win with a small print. It doesn't have to be a giant print.
I like this image. I'd like, and echoing what Larry is saying, I'd bring the left edge in until the frame is square.
Make it a square.
I don't like the humor of the cow looking at the viewer.
Yeah.
I do too.
But maybe I think cows are humorous. So.
I like the lighting as well, the dramatic light against dark and getting it off center, and then the horizon feels off because it feels like it's tilting to the right a little bit.
Even the clouds are, I think, just a smidgen too. But
yeah, and I think possibly they aligned the top of the trees where there's enough visual cues that tell you that that's not really the actual horizontal, but that could have just been an oversight too. There's a lot going for it though.
Yeah, I was mentioning earlier that I don't like washed out highlights. These are not washed out highlights.
No.
Larry even mentioned that the tonal qualities in the cow are really nice. And someone else just a few seconds ago said they like the sharp contrast, that high key look to it. It really is nice. This one's really close.
But the only thing that bugs me about this image is that the highlights coming across the back plane is competing with the cow a little bit. I would say
darken that.
Yeah, I would bring that down and then make the sky, bring it down richer as well. And I think the cow will pop out more as your subject matter.
Yeah, and maybe the rock that's underneath the cow's belly there could go a little darker too. So
the cow likes it. Why do you think it has a smile on its face?
Okay, so this will be a go, right?
Yeah, I think it's a go, but I think it does need those changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That brings up a good question, Kurt. What now? I have my own view, but I just want to know what everybody else's view is. When somebody submits an image to me for printing for round two, how much can I change from what is the original image? And typically, I like to leave the crop alone because it means that now we've all mentioned it, but as judges, would the judges like to see that change between tier 1 and tier 2, knowing that we never actually see the image we saw again from tier 1? Now, I'm not talking about contrast and color and brightness. I mean, that's pretty obvious. We can get better images out of it, but particularly in the crop.
So that's
would you as a judge want to see that?
Lois and Amatel question.
Yeah, my understanding is you wouldn't be able to change the crop from first to second.
That's typically what I do. Okay.
All right.
Lois or Amatel, is that it? Like if the image, like when they put that tag on the back that has the image, you can't change the crop that much from the original tag. I mean, where it would be noticeable?
The image that's submitted should be the image that's on the back tag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is a go. This would be accepted. Let's go back. He only submitted one. We'll go to Dolores Palant.
Love the idea.
Me too. It needs
But I'm wondering if the square crop if it should instead be a vertical crop focusing on the two trees outside of the tree.
It's lacking sharpness right here too.
Well, that we don't know if that's in the original image or not. It just could be the JPEG we've got.
We are allowed to use Topaz AI Sharpen, so that might help it.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with kind of what John's saying too, but also that the blue snow that's on the edge in the dead center there, that really draws your eye there too. You might as well just darken those to get rid of them, even desaturate them and get rid of them.
And on the right.
I kind of wish that, again, based on the crop or whatever the original image was, that there was, I like the idea that there's this tree. The story is kind of like it's a young startup tree, but I feel like I wish there were a little more of the tree showing in relationship to everything else. Like if there was more on the bottom of the image.
I got to second that.
Of the green
I feel
tree.
like there should be a little bit more on the bottom.
Yeah.
I like the rhythm of the tall trees, the tree trunks, but you're right. The story is really in the little tree, and there isn't quite enough of it.
I kind of get the feeling that that's the reason why it's kind of shown this way is that it sort of makes the tree, the green tree, feel much smaller or younger than the others. But it does feel like there's not enough of it in the scene.
What if it was? What if the green tree was completely excluded and it was just these trunks?
Be kind of boring.
Be kind of boring.
I think. I mean, it's either that or you're going to have to do something totally different to the trees in the background. But that's a theoretical. But
yeah, I love that the color contrast of the warm, sort of the orange warmer trees against the green tree. I think all that works really well.
Bye, Lois.
I just wish there was more. I wish there was more on the green tree showing below. Could even get by with less of the above.
Okay.
And
Larry,
maybe
could you get to that by cropping it down from the top as well as in from the sides?
possibly. I mean, I'd have to see. That's one of those weird things when you talk about cropping theoretically versus actually seeing it happen, because I've done that before where you'll suggest a crop and then you do it and you go, no, it doesn't really work.
Or you do like Greg is doing with you hold a book or something in front of you or your hands or something. But boy, to me, as soon as you crop vertical on that and use the two pillar trees, if you will, on the left and right as your columns for that image, it really cleans it up. And whoever said maybe you should bring it down from the top may have a point.
I think also this is a great example too, like where we were talking about the cow being in the middle of the frame didn't work. This is one where the tree in the middle of the frame does work, right? So I don't mind this green tree being in the middle of the frame in this case.
Or even not fully using the rule of thirds vertically anyway.
When things are put in the middle, normally compositionally, you're using another compositional rule called framing. And so if something has to be in the middle, we normally apply framing to keep that depth going, and that's what this artist has done. He's utilizing these trees to frame this thing in the middle.
I would advance it.
You would advance it? Okay, cool. All right, so let's go.
With
everybody
those
else
crops.
What's that?
I'd advance it with those crops.
With those crops.
Well, yeah, but remember, we're treating this as though it was a tier 1. And if I saw this image, would I advance it? No, I don't know. I might. I think it's very interesting.
Okay.
Again, it depends. Like Larry said, it depends on whatever else is in the category.
What about just a slight little extra saturation for the green only in here?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Get the subject to pop out. Here's his second image.
So again, now we're talking about the central composition here, the mountains in the middle, the people are in the middle. again, I think almost kind of like what John was saying the last one, this might be a better vertical crop.
Oh, yeah.
There's some banding in the sky, and that kind of stuff in tier 1 will definitely get you kind of booted. So figure out what caused the banding, and
banding might be just the zoom compression.
That you're right, but you have to be careful too if you're creating JPEGs that you want to make sure that at your end you don't see it there to start with.
Yeah, the zoom. Stephen is right. I'm not seeing the banding on my monitor.
Okay, so then it is a zoom thing.
Zoom compression.
Would y'all increase the overall contrast on this image? Does it look a little flat?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of a vertical crop. In retrospect, you're right, Larry. It looks good. That would also eliminate having to do any cloning on the buildings on the left-hand side, and then the only cloning you might have are the buildings right dead center above the two hikers there.
I would like to see this foreground area sharpened up and let the background stay soft.
I like the story. We've all been in a situation where we're tenuously walking across these rocks. It's a nice story.
Yeah.
Okay. So would that go forward or not?
Probably yes. I would, but and again, what category would this be put into? A people category, or would it be part of the landscape category?
Sure.
Probably
might be in winter. Might be interesting in winter,
right? Yeah.
Documentary.
Then you could get rid of the buildings though,
right
in the middle.
So those are all considerations.
I'm not even bothered by the ones in the middle, but the ones on the left keep pulling me out.
Right.
Sure.
And the ones in the middle, you could flatten the contrast on those buildings, and they wouldn't stick out near as much.
Yeah.
But I think the vertical crop is a better suggestion.
Yeah, that whole left corner down there, the water in the whole left corner is just, there's nothing there exciting. It's just,
Right. All right, move on to the next image. And we have
also, I want to just say, I mean, so because it sounds like we're being really overly critical here and nothing is good and we have to fix everything. But I mean, this really is, I think, again, people who belong to camera clubs, or I do these critique nights, but anytime you can get your images out, is to get into another room full of people and listen to those comments. And many times, even if it's just subtle things, they'll be good enough to improve the image in a way that gets past this sort of scrutiny. And sometimes what we have to say doesn't mean that it would be the only thing you could do to make this a good image. It might be just things as suggesting what would help it rise above where it is right now.
Oh yeah, great comment, Larry. This one, these next two we're going to see, I believe, belongs to Mark Keitain.
Wow. So again, what's the category? Would this go into? I mean, it's not. Is it a composite?
It looks like it.
It looks like the technique is composited, like some of it has been.
They just kind of solarized the whole image, maybe.
Some of it, right?
Yes,
because there's some of it that's not.
Yeah.
And it could go in abstract, I suppose.
That's another good one too, because I'm going to tell you, I've heard this comment in judging, listening to the judges that do the abstract category. I've heard some of the judges that'll just go over and over and over again. They go, this is a cool photograph, but doesn't anybody know what abstract is? And I don't think that's the problem. I don't think we all agree on what abstract is. Yeah. Right. Some people feel like, abstract has to be something that I don't know what it is, or and this could be, I think this is an interesting abstraction of what the real thing is. So it could fit in, for me, would fit into an abstract category.
Well, I think abstract and representational, they're a spectrum. And there's a lot of places where an image goes towards one side or the other. I mean, some are obviously representational. This is, I don't know, it could be considered abstract in my mind in the right context, but I see a lot of things that distract me, that just digital noise around the edges of things and pixelation and the way the effect is applied. There's a lot of things that just sort of pull me up. I like the general color of it, but my eye is pulled to the digital noise. As a digital artist, that is something that really bothers me.
Okay.
I also think, I mean, my first impression was I wanted to applaud the crop on this thing, being a vertical panoramic shape. You don't see that very often. But also for this image, I don't know that it necessarily works real well, because I think a lot of the stuff that's above the blue flower, I'm questioning how much of that do I really need to get the idea of sort of the color or the technique and the abstract use of it. I feel like I could probably lose a third of the area above that blue flower. But I love the shape of it. Again, this would be, if you think about also, because it came up earlier about the idea of a panoramic fitting onto a 16 by 20. My impression was years ago, the idea, especially for the big print category, was to help people that were creating panoramic images, because they always look so funky on a 16 by 20 board, which is the other idea of in the big print category. They can be narrow and wide and whatever format you want to be. So if you have that odd format that doesn't also feel like it fits well on a 16 by 20, I'm going to keep increasing the big print category. The big print category is a great place to put those kind of long, skinny images.
I just want to point out the description for abstract in the entry form is abstract, usually not recognizable as an object. Includes fractal, algorithmic art, may include detailed shots of nature. So I don't know if this would necessarily qualify it as an abstract. I'm not with the size of the image, I'm not sure if it might be an alternative process, because it is a category on film and alternative processes. So I don't know if that's the intent of the maker, that there was some alternative process that they would be able to describe here.
So we have some comments online off of Twitch. DP Skier made a comment. The picture seems stretched vertically. Casimir has made a comment. Why do you have all these categories? You seem not to have any aesthetic judgment relative to the category. All of your criticism so far is technical and goes across all categories. Leave it to me to be an outsider and rock the boat. Comments?
Is this the Kaz that I know?
Yes, it is. It's the Kaz that you know.
So, I don't know if I want to comment on their comment. I want to comment on what Amethel said, because I think that's an interesting observation of the alternative process. Because for me, I would always think about kind of like those things that Will Gibson, his classes that he teaches, and he kind of judges that category usually, is, the platinum, palladium, and sort of those alternative processes. But it's an interesting idea to think about the technical part of this image being an alternative process. I don't know how well that would fly in the judges in that category, but again, that's the whole part of what happens when we're judging is every judges roundtable, we all say it in about 50 different ways, is this whole judging thing is so subjective to which judges you get and what three judges are working together, and it changes everything.
Yeah, and that kind of brings the question, if the alternative process, those traditional processes that Larry just mentioned, I think of that category as containing those and not containing digital.
Yeah.
And that's something that we, if people can't do the digital, then they're going to start entering the digital into alternative process. Is that what's going to happen? And does it fly in that category for the judges?
So with this
let me read the description for film and alternative processes. Images produced through traditional wet darkening techniques also includes alternative genres such as photo restoration or hand coloring of photographs. These works should include the before and after images in equal size.
Yep, this won't be an alternative.
Right.
All right, so let's go to. So this one would or would not go through?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't. Okay. All right. So we go to his next example. Come on, go back. Thank you. whenever I look at abstract, abstraction really follows the same rules of composition and painting and photography. In other words, what is the primary point of focus? I'm struggling to find it here. What do you guys think?
Well, the colors, I mean, it's kind of, I think it's about a unique kind of color palette, and the technique is unique. In this image, I find those solid black areas more distracting than helpful.
Right.
I think if that whole field of color thing, I can see that really being the area of focus. It doesn't have, for me, once it gets to this abstract thing, it doesn't have to be a particular object in the image being the point of focus. The whole image could be the focus, but the black is, I think, really distracting.
I actually find that the black and that quarter, the lower left quarter of it, to me is a little more interesting than the rest of it. Although there's nice elements in different areas. There's some beautiful soft stuff up at the top, but it doesn't fit with the stuff at the bottom. There's the black and the magenta, which are kind of nice contrasts with each other in that little area, but I don't know if they stand out by themselves as strong enough to be a image just cropping it.
So this is two separate photographs, basically.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. Back to David King, but where's your story? What do you don't make me work to find it? And I like this one a little more than the other one because it has a little less noise to it, but there's a lot going on and there's a lot of distraction, and I'm not sure where to be pulled with it.
I think I think this technique that they're using is interesting, and I feel like that this is one of those things where it's harder and harder to find the correct image to maybe use this technique on. But I applaud the effort, because I think that you're doing something interesting, and maybe it just needs more exploration. I don't know how long you've been working with the technique, but if you keep following it, it'll take you somewhere, because I think there's something interesting happening in this whole idea of the sort of abstracting what's there, changing the original colors, all that stuff that's happening is really interesting to look at. I think it's a matter now of finding what type of imagery it works with, and sort of refining that technique a little bit more.
I think you hit it on the head. It just needs a little more exploration.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a no-go?
Yeah. I don't know. If it were, again, it's like, what category? That's the question on this particular image, is where would these things fall?
Say if we put it in
digital
abstract.
compositing is the only place that I would see it going in, and I don't think that I would pass it to second tier.
Okay. And I would agree with Greg on that one.
That's the problem with the digital, compositing, is that, again, there's some really good, you guys see it every year. I think there's some really good people doing digital composites. And I think in addition to part of that idea is that you might have used a digital compositing technique, but it doesn't really go, wow, that's really an interesting digital composite, as opposed to when you look at the others, they really stand out as obvious digital compositing. So again, back to that idea of making sure that the image defines the category really well. I mean, it could still be a good image. It might fit in that category, but does it really define the category in that sense?
So this next one is a single image submitted by Osea.
I believe it's
pretty nice.
Yeah, real nice. I would like to see the bottom right-hand corner a little bit darker.
Okay.
Just to kind of get your eyes to focus on, get your eyes to focus on the dog and the guy, and of course the trees that he's looking at. At first I looked at this and I going, should it be cropped a smidgen tighter? And maybe, but not much. I kind of like the panoramic look of this, and the fact that it does tell a story, out here in the middle of the wilderness all by themselves, and enjoying the creation. And I would advance this without any hesitation.
Yeah, me too. I agree with John's comment about the lower right corner maybe being a little
Right.
Just a little high.
This is a minor
Exactly.
improvement, not a really a criticism of it, because the reflections, the looking, him standing on the right, looking off into the woods, the whole composition is beautiful. The detail is lovely. The reflection, the softness of the reflection against the detail in the trees is nicely balanced.
But that bottom right-hand corner being darker might make the difference
I
between
agree.
a ribbon of some kind.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just,
I agree.
again, we talk, and I know Casimir's been talking about the technical and how we're focusing on the technical versus the category. And unfortunately, we just don't have the time, other than what they've talked about for the abstract. We don't have time to get into a lot of these different categories. But your point, well, I'm not sure I understand your point, but I would not want to judge this image against a picture of an automobile. Okay.
So
that's why we have categories.
Casimir says this is a beautiful photo, and
He's
he
right.
says, "Hell no, don't crop it."
I think you may be right on that.
Well, and bringing up the idea of the categories, I'll jump back to the big print category, because that's what the big print category is: apples to oranges. There's the content of that is anything goes. It's a tough one to judge because of that reason.
And your image better be tack on sharp.
Yeah.
And I say that after looking at the one that won first place, which was an abstract. Speaking of abstracts, you know.
Well, these we're looking at JPEGs that may be over 100%. The only thing I would mention on this one, I think that I would really be careful of, and I don't know again if it's just an online whatever, but even right where you are now, the deep shadows, that green tree that's in the middle where it goes pretty black, I would watch those to make sure that you're pulling out something. And see that one green tree that's in the middle of all the orange up there on the left side?
Deep.
And it's black.
Yeah.
You're right.
I'm trying to bring out something there just in case. I mean, it is that way when you see it on your screen at home versus what we're seeing here online. Those areas I think would be better if they were brought out.
Well, I know the photographer, you're talking about sharpness on this image. I know the photographer would, I would almost for sure this image is tack on sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's a comment online by TP Skier saying that the black has no detail and does not add to the picture.
That was for
that was for another one?
Abstract.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
you do have to watch. Larry is absolutely correct. Whenever I'm working on my landscapes, I always make damn sure I get into those shadows and make sure there's going to be some detail in there. Keep them rich, but have some detail in there. All right. I guess my only comment on this one is get rid of the dog. Get rid of the dog.
No.
Yes.
You're a communist.
No, dude. I mean, imagine the dog not being there. Now it's about the man communing with nature, not the dog.
I think I would just select the dog and turn it around so it's looking in the same direction.
Actually, no, that's a good point. That could work.
Story-wise,
I think that can work.
Yeah.
Speaking of different directions, I'd like to see it flip left to right.
Right, I was wondering that too.
Oh, yeah.
But generally, you should do that right at the beginning, because if you stare at an image long enough, you fall in love with its direction.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot in critiques. It's hard to do after you've grown. And not only that, it's hard to do when you were there, you shot it. But sometimes
the photographer just said, no, the dog stays in the comments.
Yeah, I think the dog stays.
There's Osea's here. Hi, Osea.
He isn't.
I'm in trouble now.
Yeah. All right. I'm anxious to hear this.
If you take away the dog, the image would be awful rough.
The ladies are saying keep the dog.
Dad jokes. What can I say?
Okay, cool. All right. Come on.
That's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
That's gorgeous. That's right amazing. On. That's right on.
It's a little close to the edge on the right there, and the top.
Yeah, with this one.
Yeah, like a little room there.
Hey, can I suggest this go in the big print category, mainly because of its sharpness?
Yeah.
This thing would be pretty spectacular. Well, again, you can't tell on a JPEG, but I'll bet you anything the original image is tack on sharp. Just a thought.
I don't know if they forgot to crop it, but it looks like they have two layers. Let's look on the left-hand side. It looks like there's a
right along
that. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I agree. It looks fantastic. It just maybe a little bit more space.
Mm-hmm.
Also, this is one that could stand or can it stand the scrutiny of the question? Is this real or is this AI?
All right. So Jill Ford says, "Wow, wow, wow, great stuff." And then of course Casimir says that looks like AI.
That was my first thought too.
Yeah.
And yet
in fact, he says it looks like Mid-Journey.
Yeah.
What's a Mid-Journey?
That's the actual.
Did I just
AI
date
program.
myself?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
It's legal in California.
Everything's legal in California.
So here was an interesting, and this was kind of the question that, kind of comes up eventually is, as judges, there's a weird, because I've done it before, make an assumption and then find out later that your assumption's not true. And this is what I think some of the points that's being made about these people who are submitting AI images to photo contests, just to say, as this thing keeps coming, eventually you're not going to know the difference. And that doesn't mean that they should then therefore be in photo contests. I just think that, again, if I were to look at this and make that assumption, this is AI and kicking it out, and then you find out later it's really not. They have some kind of weird, technique that makes it feel a certain way. It becomes that weird place of where you have to make that decision. And I remember I asked Greg about this because we talked about it in the compositing category. They felt like last year some images that came in were AI created images, and some of those were dismissed for that reason. Is that right, Greg?
That's true.
Well, Cimarron just commented, said, I would like to see the original or the source image before it was manipulated. Maybe that's going to be the solution. But how do you, at that point, it's strictly up to the honesty of the photographer.
Right. I think Lois mentioned that that is a requirement, that anything that looks like photo compositing, you do have to submit the images in tier 1.
But this doesn't look like photo comcompositing.
Yeah, no,
this looks like a well-processed photograph or AI, and we have a rule that there's no AI allowed.
Right.
If somebody breaks that, I on this one I cannot tell, and I would pass it through. If I found out later, if it won an award, and I found out later that it was AI, I would expect the coordinators to take it off the wall.
Right.
And the thing that to me, it's such a beautiful image, and I'm not seeing, I'm seeing light that feels like Mid-Journey, and some of the elements of it,
Mid-Journey.
But I don't know. It's just a beautiful image.
I don't know if that flower would pass the flower test. It has an artificial look to it. The petals on the left-hand side don't look mechanically congruent, which is something that is kind of weird to me.
You know what? If the judges can't tell, can the coordinators reach out to the artist after tier 1 judging to request the original photograph?
The entry materials state that we can require source images of any.
Good. Okay, then that takes care of that.
Yep.
I know.
Does it? I mean, that you're requiring requiring the photographer's honesty to make sure you got that image or that original file.
See, this looks very much like Mid-Journey.
This is not even close to well, and again, whether we're generating images that look photographic or non-photographic, this even feels like there's nothing photographic about it.
Right.
It looks more illustrated than photographic. But again, it's not to say that there aren't techniques that we can do to create that look in Photoshop too.
Right.
But there's a lot of those topaz filters you can create, Cezanne filter or whatever, filters that make things look like they were painted. And so it's, that kind of gets back to that original question of using plugins that would begin with a regular photograph, but end up making it look like a painting in the end. We wouldn't know whether it was. So we're still having the same problem as judges, is making an assumption that's either right or wrong. And the person who has submitted the images would have to suffer the consequences or benefits of the judge's decision on how it was made.
Emmett, though, I think it's pretty clear that you guys need a no rules category, and that Larry Vogel would have to write the description.
Oh, there it is. You already wrote it. No rules. It's going to be tough, man. I think, for because, and I only say this because, in fact, Lois has already left. Lois has that amazing photograph of that gigantic moon behind those towers, the I think they're cell towers or whatever they were. And I was judging one of the photo contests when it came up, and I have become more aware of like not making my assumptions. And I go, my comment was, if this is composited, it's great. If it's not composited, wow. And it turned out it wasn't a composited photograph. She shot it with a very long lens, long way away, and everything kind of compressed together, and it made this gigantic moon. It was a beautiful image. But again, it was like, it's hard. You got to like almost withdraw yourself from making some of those conclusions.
All right. So this one we pass on, right? It goes.
I would, no matter how it was made. It just doesn't feel like it would.
It doesn't feel like, oh, so no. Photograph. So it's a no-go. Okay, got it.
It's more painting than
illustrative,
a photograph.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I think we've got one more. We have one more left. Rob Pianavella. Rob Pianavella.
I think this image would do quite well in the. Isn't there a black and white people category?
Yeah. Formal and informal.
Yeah. Well, I would say this was informal. I'm just going to go out on a limb here. But I could be wrong. I mean, either way, it works really well. The only thing I might do is brighten it just a bit.
Yeah.
Just to, I mean, an eighth of a stop. It's very, very close, and you want to, keep the, But and then I don't know. Do we need more space below the elbows? Not much.
I think take the background deeper a little bit more.
Yeah.
So John, or ask you, why did you think that this would be? You said informal.
Just because of the guy's hair and the clothes he's wearing, and I know that's why I immediately said, "Wait, no, that can't be right. This could be a formal. I mean, this could be a product
more
shoot
studio-like, right?
Okay, yeah. So I'm probably wrong on that.
This was a formal because the photographer asked them to pose.
Looks like, yeah.
Okay.
I would definitely advance this. I find it a really, really cool shot.
Very
working man, kind of, the guy's obviously, knows how to work with, well, maybe he doesn't know how to work with tools. Maybe he's a florist. I don't know. But either way, I just think it's a really good mood shot.
I like the way his arms are sort of out of proportion to everything. It's it's kind of an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
I think Casimir is going too scientific on us here. He says, please ignore the category comment. In retrospect, it's not a good question because categories are not value judgments and have no criteria for one to judge for aesthetic value. Categories as aesthetic values are apples and oranges. I opened my mouth too soon. He's getting way too deep for us here.
Well, I would say with the exception that we are sitting here as judges representing the San Diego Fair, which is full of categories.
It's full of categories.
Help people figure out how well they would do in a particular category. So
I want to comment on that because when something comes into a category that I'm judging, I'm never thinking of it the way that we're talking about what category it goes in. That decision's been made when it's been put in a category. So we're talking about it more than we would in reality judging. When something comes into a category, I'm only looking at the picture. I'm only making a value judgment based on the picture and the impact and all of those qualities. And then if something feels really incongruent about the category, which is very, very rare, then we might move it to another category, or if it would place better in another category, then we move it to the category. So,
And we do that in tier 2, by the way.
yeah.
I mean, I'm
No,
sorry, in
in
tier
tier
1
two.
also.
No, we can do that in tier 1 too.
It's rare. Again, like you say, Greg, it's very rare.
Yeah.
And DP Skier just asked, this picture would be better with a little white. I'm not so sure it's as much the white, which is really just the patch on his right breast there. I think it's just a smidgen too dark. It's a little heavy. And I think that would correct the problem I think that you're talking about.
A little more highlight in the face, possibly, just to
Yeah.
bring that punch up a little bit more.
Yeah.
He's got highlights on his wrists, the forearms there, but
Yeah.
not on the face.
Yeah, but it's a cool shot.
Very cool.
You should come over here and look at it. It looks really good on my screen. Yeah. Beautiful shot. I mean, I think this shows, the thing I like about it, and especially as a judge, one of the things I always tell people is it's hard as a photographer to show what I like to call the hand of the artist, because so many times, you know, it's all about this, we don't touch the product, kind of, it all happens mechanically, whereas a painter or a sculptor, the hand of the artist is always obvious. But I think in our case, what we have here is an example of how good they are at processing a file, right? This didn't just come out of the camera this way. There's definitely a feel that they have processed this to a black and white image. They've done a great job on how it was processed. So I love seeing that in an image. If an image comes across that feels like it just came out of the camera this way, I don't, you know, like it just feels really average, where you feel like all of that processing could have really enhanced the image rather than just how it came out of the camera. That weighs heavily on me when I'm looking at photographs, judging them for the fair. Is that there's
and that holds true for the cell phone category. For those that are, you know, you can take your images and enhance them in any program you want.
Yeah.
A lot of the tier 1 images that we saw in past cell phone categories was simply like Larry said, somebody just took it out of the camera and sent it in. And, you know, post-processing is very, very important. I mean, Ansel Adams' prints just didn't make themselves. Well, he is as close to a human god as it could be, but other than that.
Up in Orange County, when I was teaching at Irvine Valley College, I took about 25 students to the local museum there, and they had an Ansel Adams exhibit that basically featured his iconic photos when he first started printing, and those same iconic photos before he died.
Yeah, it changes.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Moonrise is an amazing example of that,
Right.
because you know, he did it in the 40s and died in the 80s, and he sold more Moonrise images than any other one. So it was subjected to that reinterpretation probably more than any other one of his negatives, and it's phenomenal to see that changing.
Yeah, it's fun if you ever go back and look at the source negative and what he did to it just with a contact sheet, and how he changed what we do in RAW, he was doing with chemistry, and you know, before he even started printing.
Yeah, so
this is a yes.
Yeah, this is a yes. So Samara mentioned that a tight crop, I guess is what I did, would really make it, you know,
another kind of image.
Yeah, another kind of image. Yeah. So
that's a little tight, too tight there. Okay.
So that is it, I believe.
Wow.
Let me go back. I think we're done. And I think we should probably talk about the symposium very quickly. Come on, get up here. Thank you.
I would like to say before you go any further, at least thanks to everybody who submitted those images. I know sometimes it's not easy to put your images up in front of a bunch of judges and hear them talk about it out loud. So it does take a little courage, and I'm glad you did it, but I hope the payoff is you got some great information from all of us about how to improve those images before you submit those.
Yeah, I think we all know that you really have to have a thick skin for this, because it's hard for us judges to know whether we should give you an honest opinion or something else.
Well, I think we're giving it an honest opinion on some. We're just doing it relatively tactfully. You have to. And, you know, I mean, if you're going to be a photographer and you have other people look at it, by all means, you're going to have a bit of thick skin. Well, that's true in any discipline. you're going to have a little thick skin to really understand what, what's the best way to go.
And Jill says she's got to go. Bye, Jill. Thank you for coming.
All
Yeah,
right. Well, lunch
All
and
of
a
a-
Bloody Mary have a name, my name on it over here.
All
So
of a sudden, my camera got the Doris Day filter on it.
Larry,
I don't know why.
Larry, did you want to talk about the AI coming up?
Sure. So there's going to be a panel discussion at the Oceanside Museum of Art. So I know that's a long way for a lot of you South County people to come. You think it requires a passport to get from South County to North County, but you're all invited too. So the panel discussion is going to be, like it says here on the announcement, March 22nd. If you go to the Oceanside Museum website, there's some more information there. It all came together by a curator who works for the museum also. Valo was the one who originally put the idea together, and out of a conversation, he had conversations with several artists. But so each of the people on the panel have sort of different, I think, perspectives about it. And also it'll open up also to audience questions. So it's really important that you're there. If you have questions or concerns, things that you want to have addressed, it'd be a great place to do that. So you can go on the museum and sign up. There is a fee, but I think it's like a $10 or $15, or it depends on if you're a member or a non-member. There's different price levels. I think that kind of covers it.
Okay.
And Greg is our moderator. So that's what I said earlier.
And
Right.
Stephen and Larry are on the panel, and Kaz,
who's in the
in the
audience.
audience.
Right. And
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting night. There's an awful lot of stuff to discuss about where this is, and we've got some amazing professionals on this panel. So if you're interested in it or have used it, and you're concerned about any of these attributes that are careers and culture, aesthetics, legal aspects, come ask your questions, and hopefully we'll cover all that stuff.
Doubt it. It's only an hour and a half.
Yeah, but we'll get it. We'll answer everything about everything in our heads, at least.
Everything about everything.
Yes. No, we would, but it's a starting conversation.
Because you guys know a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff.
Yep.
So I would really like to thank the audience for being here, and to reflect Larry's comment. Thank you all who has submitting. It does take some courage for the professionals to look at your work and offer criticism. I think what we've seen today, you guys overall did a fantastic job with your work, and hopefully you'll take those comments, actually go back and actually apply what you've learned here today back to those images and see what you think afterwards. Thank you, Kurt, and thank you, Larry. Thank you, John. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Emethel. Thank you, Jennifer, and I'm missing Lois. And this was a lot of fun. You guys were fantastic. We should do this again sometime. Maybe later.
How about next year?
Next year.
Next year. Maybe we'll do something just the whole print critique. And I was a little late advertising this session today, so normally I would we got pretty good submissions, but normally I would get a little more submissions. So maybe we'll do one later in the year, just for both digital art and photography, and just go to town with it, and just forget about the categories. Just look at it as artists and just offer our thoughts. Okay.
And then invite Kaz to be on the panel.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But Kate, you're welcome.
Remind everybody of our deadline. We have a countdown, and it's only 44 days until April 17th. So if you could please share with your audience the link I just posted in the chat about how to enter, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you for having us.
Will do.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, bye, guys.
Thank you, Stephen.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Let's see. How do I get this thing? That's kind of weird. Stop sharing and end it. End all meetings. Okay. All right. I want to blow you away. Is it raining again? Bear me. I don't think it's asking. I think it's meant to be. No, it's not asking. This is normal. Right, we got it right. All right, so I got two. Mr. Mandala.
Yo.
What's that other noise I hear back there? That's your phone?
That's you.
That's me?
Yeah, you're still on the screen. What's that other noise I hear back there?
Oh.
That's me?
Okay. Let me end it.